New leaked messages exposing David messaging underage girls are going viral, revealing an image of a predator behind his fame.
We should talk about this missing girl that was found dead in the singer David's car.
The darkest part isn't just the leaked messages, it's what investigators found hidden in his car. Now, fans are speculating, and the street is buzzing with one big question: is David going to jail for life? The leaked messages. In the past week, the internet has been ablaze with leaked messages allegedly showing David, real name David Burke, communicating with underage girls. Screenshots, DMs, and chat logs have been circulating at lightning speed across Discord servers, Twitter threads, and TikTok expose accounts. Fans, former supporters, and watchdog pages all began asking the same question: was this rising star secretly preying on his most vulnerable fans? But these leaked messages didn't just emerge out of the blue. They started after authorities made a shocking discovery a week ago and relayed it to the police. According to NBC reporting relayed through YouTube coverage, Los Angeles authorities discovered a severely decomposed body in an impounded Tesla registered to David. The vehicle, a black Tesla, had been abandoned on a street in the Hollywood Hills and towed to a lot where police say staff noticed a foul odor. When the car was opened, officers made a gruesome discovery: the remains of a teenage girl stuffed into a bag in the car's front. Within days, the LAPD confirmed the identity. It was 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, who had gone missing from Riverside County over a year earlier, in April 2024, at just 13 years old.
The story actually starts a week ago when you had LA police saying they found a body in an impounded Tesla that was registered to David. And the car was at a tow yard in Hollywood. You had the authorities not really initially saying who they believed the remains were. And David, he was reportedly on tour at the time that the body was found.
Police noted that the body was dismembered, partially intact, and showed signs of long-term decomposition. One key identifying detail was a tattoo found on her right index finger, the letters "sheesh" in red ink. Celeste's mother, who recognized the description, reached out to TMZ with her suspicion. She told investigators that her daughter had the same tattoo, and chillingly, that her daughter had once mentioned a boyfriend named David. The tattoo clue set off a storm of online speculation because, as TMZ and other outlets pointed out, David himself had a nearly identical tattoo on the same finger, though his was black ink.
We found photos from last September where he has on his pointer finger of his right hand
the same finger as hers.
The same exact finger, the exact same tattoo. It's in black.
While some argued this was a coincidence, after all, the tattoo had been a pop culture trend since Rihanna made it popular in 2008. Others online took it as a dark symbol of a hidden connection between the singer and the victim. The mystery deepened when a former teacher of Celeste came forward during a TMZ live broadcast. Speaking candidly, he recalled Celeste as a student in his middle school class and revealed that she had once confided in peers about meeting a much older boy through social media, a boy who turned out to be none other than David.
That's her in my classroom in front of this poster right here.
His shocking testimony, caught on video by students, was later clarified as an attempt to warn his current class about the dangers of online predators. But to many viewers, it confirmed the darkest suspicions that Celeste had been lured, groomed, and trapped by a figure far older, far more powerful. At this point, the LAPD confirmed only limited details. Police stated they had no official suspects, no classification of the death, and had not even declared it a homicide. Still, they executed a search warrant at the Hollywood Hills home where David was reportedly staying, a house rented by his manager, Josh Marshall of Interscope Records. Law enforcement used luminol testing, the same technique popularized by CSI, spraying surfaces to detect even cleaned up traces of blood. According to TMZ producers, they scoured drains, garages, and floors for signs of dismemberment.
They were using luminol around the house. They were checking drains to see if there's any blood evidence or, blood or tissue, a very long list of things they were looking for in that house.
Police have yet to confirm what evidence was recovered, but the raid sent the internet into overdrive. If the car was in David's name, if the body was found in his trunk, if the house he stayed in was now tested for blood, why wasn't he being called a suspect? As official sources stayed quiet, internet detectives filled the vacuum. Reddit forums dissected his lyrics. TikTok creators re-uploaded clips of his music videos, pointing to disturbing imagery like bloody shirts and songs with titles referencing violence. His single Homicide, which eerily became his most streamed track in the weeks following the discovery, was highlighted as a possible dark confession. Meanwhile, a clip of a live stream featuring David and Celeste together surfaced online. Though brief and low quality, the footage appeared to show Celeste interacting with fans, while David instructed moderators not to keep the stream available afterward.
Now we've got video of them on a live stream where they're interacting with some of his fans. It's a short clip, but at one point he does say to the moderators of the chat that we should make sure when this is done, don't leave it up.
The internet's interpretation was immediate. Why wouldn't he want this stream to exist? What had been said during those moments that he wanted scrubbed from the record? The scandal rapidly began collapsing the very career David had just built in mere days. Hollister and Crocs announced they were removing him from campaigns. Singer Kali Uchis publicly stated she was pulling her collaboration with him. His scheduled concerts in Los Angeles and San Francisco were abruptly canceled, including a performance at the prestigious Greek Theater. The Grammy Museum removed him from its events roster. Interscope Records reportedly paused the release of his deluxe album and dropped promotional efforts.
Already seeing some fallout with brands like Hollister and Crocs saying that they're removing him from ad campaigns. Also, Kali Uchis said that she's going to be pulling her song with him as well. And he also canceled his concert last night and he's scheduled to perform in LA soon. So we're going to have to see if any of that changes.
For a 20-year-old who had only just begun his mainstream ascent, the consequences were immediate and severe. And so, within the span of just a week, the story had shifted from leaked messages with underage girls to the revelation of a missing teenager's dismembered body in his car, a grieving mother pointing to a tattoo, a teacher confirming the social media connection, and police scouring his residence for blood. By now, the internet wasn't just asking questions, it was drawing its own conclusions. And the fallout was only beginning, because as we move into this investigation, we'll unravel the contradictions in the reporting, the hidden details of the raids, and the questions surrounding why, even as evidence piled up, David has yet to be officially named a suspect. The investigation unravels. When we left off, the world had just learned that Celeste Rivas, a 15-year-old missing girl, was found dismembered in a Tesla registered to rising star David. The internet was stunned, brands were pulling away, and police quietly raided the house he was staying in. But in the days that followed, the story only grew darker and far more confusing, because the evidence, the raids, and the mounting coincidences painted one of the most disturbing pictures imaginable. Yet the police still stopped short of naming David a suspect. So what was really happening behind the scenes? In mid-September, Los Angeles police executed a search warrant on a Hollywood Hills mansion rented under the name of David's manager, Josh Marshall, who is closely tied to Interscope Records. This wasn't just a casual sweep. According to TMZ producers speaking on Banfield, investigators brought in luminol, a forensic chemical that glows when it comes in contact with even microscopic traces of blood. They sprayed walls, floors, and drains. They scoured the garage, a space crime analyst often described as the perfect location for dismemberment in true crime cases.
They were using luminol around the house. They were checking drains to see if there's any, blood evidence or, blood or tissue that was in the drains there. So they did a scouring of this house looking for any evidence.
The implication was chilling. Police weren't just looking for clues. They were searching for a murder scene. Reports from TMZ's law enforcement sources suggested detectives were especially interested in the plumbing system. If Celeste's body had been dismembered in that house, traces of blood, tissue, or cleaning chemicals might still remain in sinks, bathtubs, or drains.
Oh, it would make perfect sense if they were looking to see where that dismembering happened.
To the public, it sounded like a smoking gun was about to be revealed. Yet strangely, weeks later, police still had not released what, if anything, was recovered from the home. Different outlets began reporting slightly different angles, fueling conspiracy theories. NBC coverage relayed by YouTube stressed that LAPD had not even classified the case as a homicide, noting there were no current persons of interest, while TMZ live segments emphasized the teacher's story, the live stream clip, and the fact that search warrants require probable cause, suggesting that investigators already believed foul play was involved. On Banfield, TMZ producer Charles Letibotier gave even more gruesome details. The Tesla had sat abandoned on the street for days. Neighbors smelled rotting flesh, and when police finally opened the frunk, they found only a torso, a head, and partial limbs.
That's when they opened that front hatch on the Tesla and found the bag with the body parts.
And they call that the frunk, if I'm not mistaken, in the front of the Tesla. It's like the trunk in the front, so to speak. But that's a really good point of forensic interest, that there was someone who noticed something that didn't smell right when the car was abandoned on that California street. So that would indicate that the body was in there probably prior to the impound lot.
The contradictions left fans, true crime communities, and journalists scrambling to fill in the blanks. At the center of these contradictions was the tattoo clue. Police confirmed the victim had "shh" tattooed on her finger. Celeste's mother confirmed it was in red ink. TMZ later revealed that David had the same tattoo in black ink. To some, this was a coincidence. To others, it was an undeniable bond, perhaps even a mark of ownership between the singer and the missing girl. Then came the live stream evidence. Video surfaced of Celeste appearing alongside David during a live broadcast to his fans. In the short clip, she points out comments in the chat. Moments later, David can be heard instructing moderators.
But at one point, he does say to the moderators of the chat that we should make sure when this is done, don't leave it up.
The fact that he explicitly wanted the stream deleted sent internet detectives into overdrive. What could have been said or shown in that moment that he didn't want preserved? Some theorized that the live stream confirmed his relationship with Celeste. Others speculated that fans in the comments were calling out the age gap, forcing him to panic and order its removal. Despite all of this, the tattoo, the live stream, the house raid, the car registered in his name, LAPD spokespeople insisted that David was not officially a suspect.
And we should say that the police have not named a suspect yet. The police have not named a person of interest yet, but that doesn't mean they don't have one.
This sparked heated debates online. Commentators compared the case to the investigation into Brian Kohberger, the Idaho murder suspect. In Kohberger's case, police were criticized for releasing too little information until they revealed an airtight case. Could the LAPD be playing the same strategy? Or was there something else? Connections in the industry, the reluctance to accuse a rising star without watertight evidence. Adding to the intrigue was the Tesla itself. Teslas are essentially rolling surveillance devices, equipped with cameras and data logs tracking every trip. As TMZ Live speculated, police could subpoena Tesla to access video footage, GPS data, or even information about when the frunk was open. If that data existed, it could solve the case in seconds, so why hadn't it been released? Meanwhile, the music industry continued to distance itself. His streaming catalog remained online, but merchandise featuring bloody imagery was quietly scrubbed.
The label is pulling all official promotion, and he's taken out of the Grammy Museum for this appearance. But there's still a lot of publicity around his name and his songs.
His streaming.
Well, that's not the only thing that's been pulled, though. We also reported this morning that those bloody shirts, the bloody clothing that were a part of his act and a part of some of his songs and the music videos, they're not available anymore.
This wasn't just damage control. For insiders, it was a message. In an industry already scarred by scandals of grooming, abuse, and exploitation, no one wanted to be caught protecting a potential predator. As David's career crumbled, fans and critics began dissecting his catalog with a magnifying glass. Lyrics once celebrated as darkly poetic were now reframed as confessions. His fascination with themes of blood, homicide, and pain were now read not as artistic choices, but as evidence. Was this creative foreshadowing, or just another case of hindsight bias, where the internet projects guilt onto art after tragedy? As the internet screamed for justice, and as fans debated whether he was guilty, innocent, or being protected, one central question lingered. Who is David, really? By now, the headlines are clear. Leaked messages, a missing girl's body found in his Tesla, live streams that raise suspicions, raids, and a wave of canceled shows and brand partnerships. But to understand the full impact of this scandal, we need to step back and ask, who is David? Because this wasn't just any artist. This was a Gen Z star who in less than 2 years had gone from recording songs in his sister's closet to performing on world stages. And now, in the same breath, his name was being whispered alongside words like predator, murder, and scandal. David Anthony Burke, better known to fans as David, was born in Queens, New York in 2005 before moving to Houston, Texas. Like so many Gen Z creatives, his earliest fame came not from record labels or big stages, but from the internet. In his early teens, he was deeply immersed in Fortnite, not just as a player, but as a creator, uploading highlight videos to YouTube. Music at first was secondary, but when he grew frustrated with copyright strikes removing his videos, he decided to start making his own background tracks. That pivot changed everything. With nothing more than an iPhone and some makeshift recording setups in his sister's closet, he started releasing lo-fi songs on SoundCloud. They caught on. By 2022, he had stumbled onto what would become his breakout hit, Here With Me. A melancholic ballad drenched in longing, it exploded on TikTok, appearing in millions of videos and quickly climbing charts. Soon after, he was signed by Interscope Records, the powerhouse label behind legends from Eminem to Billie Eilish. And in 2023, David's crossover with Fortnite, producing an official theme, sealed his reputation as the quintessential Gen Z artist, born from gaming culture, validated by TikTok, and coronated by the industry.
He just made a theme for Fortnite as well. And even if you don't know him, this might sound familiar because
he wasn't just rising, he was soaring. Unlike brash, boastful rappers, David's persona was crafted around quiet vulnerability. He appeared soft-spoken in interviews, shy almost to the point of mystery. His songs leaned heavily into emotional honesty, heartbreak, loneliness, the fear of being forgotten. Fans described him as a comfort artist, someone who seemed to be feeling what they felt. Even his aesthetic, muted tones, gothic visuals, and merchandise featuring bleeding hearts and torn fabric, played into the image of a brooding, misunderstood poet. That image made him relatable, especially to teenagers navigating turbulent emotions. But it also created the perfect disguise, because what looked like artistry in hindsight now looked like foreshadowing. Lyrics about pain began to feel less like metaphor, more like confession. Merchandise featuring bloody shirts, once edgy fashion, was quietly scrubbed from shelves after Celeste's body was discovered. The same traits that had made him irresistible to fans, his darkness, his mystery, now made him terrifying. All of that goodwill collapsed in mere days. The moment LAPD confirmed Celeste Rivas remains in his Tesla, the story flipped. Headlines once celebrating him as TikTok's breakout star now screamed about raids, tattoos, and live streams. Brands dropped him. Hollister and Crocs cut ties. Singer Kali Uchis canceled their collaboration. The Grammy Museum pulled his scheduled event. Concerts in Los Angeles and San Francisco were abruptly canceled. For a 20-year-old who had just been labeled the future of alternative pop, the collapse was brutal. If the industry's withdrawal was swift, the fans' heartbreak was slower and more painful. David's audience was overwhelmingly young. Many were teenage girls who saw in him a mirror for their own insecurities. They made TikTok edits with his songs, wrote fan fiction, and swarmed his concerts with handmade posters. Now those same fans flooded social media with grief. He sang like he understood us. Turns out he was using us. I feel sick. He preyed on girls our age while we were giving him streams. This is grooming, plain and simple. Some defended him, insisting the investigation hadn't named him a suspect. But for most, the betrayal was total. What had felt like intimacy, parasocial closeness to a soft-spoken star, had been shattered into suspicion and disgust. Behind the scenes, executives scrambled. For decades, the music industry has faced scandals tied to exploitation, from R. Kelly's decades of abuse to allegations around Chris D'Elia, Tekashi 6ix9ine, and others. But what unsettled executives most about the David case was its speed. He hadn't been a superstar for decades. His scandal didn't come after years of whispers. It hit at the peak of his ascent. That raised uncomfortable questions. How much do labels vet the artists they sign? How much do managers know about who their artists interact with online? And how many other rising stars are walking time bombs, their private lives waiting to implode? For an industry desperate to rebuild public trust, the timing couldn't be worse. Beyond the industry, the scandal ignited a cultural firestorm, because this wasn't just about one artist. It was about the structural vulnerability of teenage fans in the digital age. Celeste's story embodied the danger. She was 13 when she met him online. According to her teacher, she ran away to meet him in LA. Police brought her back, but she vanished again and ended up dead in his car.
She met this dude on social media. He was a rapper in LA. He came and got her. She ran away from home. She was gone for like a month. The cops found her in Hollywood, brought her back to our school. She came back to our school, kind of told people this story. She disappeared again in May of that year. And then I found out yesterday that she's now dead in that rapper's car, cut into pieces.
For parents, it was a chilling reminder. Online, fandoms are not safe spaces. The same platforms that give kids music and community also expose them to predators. For fans, it was a wake-up call. The parasocial intimacy they feel with artists can blind them to danger. And for the media, it was fuel for a broader debate. Should celebrities be allowed direct access to minors via DMs, Discord, or private fan servers? Even without charges, the court of public opinion has spoken. David's name is now inseparable from scandal. Think pieces call him the dark side of TikTok fame. Reddit forums compile exhaustive timelines. TikTok detectives pore over his lyrics. The irony is brutal. The internet that made him famous is the same one dismantling him, one thread, one video, one live stream at a time. So where does he go from here? The options are bleak. If Tesla's onboard data, forensic results from the raid, or new testimony tie him directly to Celeste's death, he could face charges ranging from manslaughter to homicide, permanent blacklisting. Even without charges, the scandal may have ended his mainstream career. Labels, brands, and venues may never risk booking him again. Underground rebrand. Some disgraced artists retreat into underground scenes, relying on die-hard fan bases. But with allegations tied to underage victims, redemption is nearly impossible. Comeback attempt years later. History shows some celebrities return after scandals, but crimes against minors occupy a special category of unforgivable in the public eye. The only certainty is uncertainty. Until LAPD releases more evidence, until the cause of death is finalized, until Tesla's data is revealed, speculation will rule the conversation. But beyond speculation lies the truth that matters most. The story of Celeste Rivas, a 15-year-old girl, a daughter, a student, a teenager who once made TikToks with her friends, someone whose teacher remembered her smile, whose mother still clung to the memory of her red tattoo, and now reduced to a body in a bag, found in the frunk of a Tesla registered to a pop star. Her story is the tragedy. Her death is the reason, and her loss is the true cost of this scandal. David's fame may flicker on streaming platforms, but the legacy he leaves behind is no longer measured in streams, charts, or sold-out shows. It's measured in the grief of a family, the betrayal of a fan base, and the unanswered question of what really happened to Celeste Rivas. Love this video? Click on the cards on your screen.
I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died. And I didn't even cry, not a single tear.
D4vd reacting to his girlfriend dying in his car. When the clip of David first surfaced, it seemed like just another viral moment, but everything changed once investigators pulled his girlfriend's body out of his abandoned Tesla. And with the feds trying to piece together evidence to convict David, this clip may be the evidence that puts David away for life. We've got all the gist, let's break it down. When keeping it real goes wrong, Yo, let me put you on game about something that's been eating at the streets and got the whole internet going crazy. Picture this, some young cat from Houston drops the hottest track of 2022, literally called Romantic Homicide, and the whole world vibes to it. We talking about David, that 20-year-old indie R&B crooner who had these streets singing his pain. But the real victim here, a 15-year-old Latina shorty named Celeste Rivas Hernandez from Lake Elsinore, a small suburban spot where everybody know everybody's business until they don't. The question keeping folks up at night is simple but deadly. Was David's music just artistic expression, or was homie really laying out his murder game plan in 4K for the whole world to see? David Anthony Burke, that's David's government name, didn't come from the typical industry pipeline. Shorty wasn't getting groomed by no major label or singing at church talent shows. Nah, this cat emerged from the digital trenches like some kind of musical ghost, armed with nothing but an iPhone and his sister's closet-turned studio. The come-up was different, and that's what made it so real to these young folks. Romantic Homicide wasn't no manufactured hit with a team of writers and producers. This was pure bedroom confessions, raw and uncut, the kind of authenticity that cuts through all the industry BS and speaks directly to kids who feel like nobody understands their struggle. But see, that's where it gets tricky. When you build your whole brand on being the realest, most authentic voice for heartbroken teenagers, you better make sure that authenticity don't cross over into some real dangerous territory. And based on what we know now, it looks like David might have been keeping it a little too real. The mysterious persona he crafted wasn't just marketing. It was the perfect cover for someone with darker intentions. While millions of kids were streaming his pain, thinking he was just like them, homie might have been using that emotional connection to hunt for his next victim. During his big break interview on the Zach Sang Show, David broke down his creative process, but looking back now, the words hit different.
I feel like I'm more comfortable with expressing myself and connecting with people in a way that I feel is speaking without singing. Romantic Homicide and Here With Me is like anybody could have made those songs.
Yeah, anybody could have made those songs, but not everybody ends up with a missing teenager decomposing in their Tesla. That casual way he dismissed his violent lyrics as something universal, that's the kind of manipulation that should have had people pressing pause and asking some hard questions. While David was crafting this image of the sensitive artist who understood teenage pain, he was also building something more sinister, a hunting ground disguised as a fan community. His Discord servers became like digital trap houses, spots where vulnerable young girls could go seeking understanding and end up getting preyed on by someone who knew exactly how to exploit their emotional neediness. The setup was diabolical, but effective. David positioned himself not as some distant celebrity, but as a big brother figure who'd been through the same struggles. He'd slide into conversations offering advice, emotional support, and that feeling of being understood that every lonely teenager craves. What they didn't realize was they were talking to someone who was studying their vulnerabilities like a playbook. The demographics tell the whole story. David's core fan base was teenage girls between 13, 17, kids who were dealing with depression, family problems, and all the regular struggles of growing up in suburban America. These weren't street-smart kids who could spot game from a mile away. These were suburban shorties who thought the internet was safe, and that famous people who seemed sensitive and artistic couldn't possibly be dangerous. The shh tattoo became his signature move, a way to mark his territory while making it seem like some deep artistic statement. Young girls all over the country started getting that same tattoo, thinking they were showing loyalty to an artist who understood them. What they were really doing was advertising their vulnerability to a predator who trained them to keep secrets and stay quiet about inappropriate conversations. His social media game was tight too. David knew exactly when to post for maximum impact. Late night hours when kids were up scrolling, feeling isolated and emotional. He'd drop cryptic messages about feeling misunderstood, share behind-the-scenes content that made fans feel like they had special access, and occasionally respond to comments in ways that made individual followers feel chosen and special. This wasn't accidental. This was a calculated campaign to create the perfect hunting ground, disguised as an artistic community where young fans could connect with their idol. The artistic angle provided perfect cover too. When David wrote songs about violence or death, when he created music videos featuring murdered women, when he posted cryptic messages that seemed dark or disturbing, it could all be dismissed as artistic expression. Anyone who questioned whether this content was appropriate for someone with a primarily teenage fan base could be shut down as not understanding art or being too conservative to appreciate complex creative work. The suburban princess who got caught up. Let's keep it 100 about Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Shorty wasn't some naive little girl who didn't know the world could be dangerous. She was a smart, creative 15-year-old from Lake Elsinore who had dreams bigger than her small-town reality and the kind of artistic soul that made her both special and vulnerable. But in a world where predators dress up like Prince Charming and slide through social media, even the smartest kids can get caught slipping. Celeste was born September 7th, 2009, into a tight-knit Latino family that worked hard to give their kids opportunities opportunities in the suburbs of California. Standing 5'1" and weighing about 120 pounds, with wavy brown hair and expressive brown eyes, she carried herself like someone who knew she was destined for something bigger than Lake Elsinore had to offer. Her vibe was pure Gen Z, TikTok-influenced style, a red ink tattoo on her right index finger that she rocked like a badge of honor, and the kind of creative energy that made teachers pay attention and friends gravitate toward her. Neighbors described her as outgoing but vulnerable, that perfect combination that makes someone magnetic but also marks them as potential prey. See, Celeste wasn't just another suburban teenager scrolling through social media. She was a gifted writer and artist who saw the world differently than her peers. Teachers remembered her as the kid who turned in creative writing assignments that were so mature and emotionally complex they seemed written by someone twice her age. But that same sensitivity that made her such a talented artist also made her a perfect target for someone who knew how to weaponize empathy and exploit the trust of creative kids seeking mentorship and understanding. The tattoo became a recurring element in her posts, sometimes featured prominently, other times appearing as a subtle detail in larger compositions. What looked like typical teenage rebellion and artistic expression to her family would later become crucial evidence in understanding her connection to David. But there were signs that something was shifting in Celeste's digital behavior in the months before she disappeared. Friends noticed she was becoming more secretive about her online interactions, more protective of her phone, more likely to deflect questions about who she was talking to with increasing frequency. Looking back, the warning signs were there, but they looked like normal teenage behavior to adults who didn't understand how predators operate in digital spaces. Celeste started spending more time on her phone, staying up later, becoming more emotionally volatile in ways that seemed tied to her online interactions. Her best friend, who asked to remain anonymous because David fans had been sending death threats, described watching Celeste change from someone who was open about her crushes and relationships to someone who became secretive and defensive when asked about her romantic life. The friend noticed Celeste becoming obsessed with checking messages, interrupting conversations to respond to texts with an urgency that seemed way out of proportion to normal teenage communication. When pushed about who required such immediate responses, Celeste would get defensive and change the subject, behavior that was completely different from her usually open personality. More concerning were the extreme mood swings that seemed directly connected to her phone usage. She'd be euphoric after receiving certain messages, then devastated when responses were delayed or when her phone died. Her family started noticing her staying up late, hearing her typing into the night when she should have been sleeping. These changes accelerated in the weeks before her disappearance. Celeste became increasingly isolated from her local friend group, canceling plans and showing less interest in activities she'd previously loved. She started talking about feeling like she was meant for something bigger and wanting to start fresh, language that in hindsight suggests someone was filling her head with promises about a different life. Her mother, Maria Hernandez, later revealed that Celeste had mentioned dating someone named David, but was evasive about details whenever the family tried to learn more about this mysterious boyfriend. In a suburban community where teenagers' relationships were usually pretty transparent to their families, this secrecy should have been a bigger red flag. April 5th, 2024 started normal enough for the Hernandez family. Celeste seemed excited about her movie night with her older brother Matthew, a weekly tradition they'd maintained since middle school. She spent extra time getting ready, choosing her outfit with the kind of care usually reserved for important occasions rather than casual family time. The gray pants, black sweater, hat, and Hello Kitty sandals she chose reflected the complex identity she was navigating, part sophisticated teenager trying to project maturity, part kid who still found joy in cartoon characters. It was an outfit that perfectly captured who Celeste was at 15, caught between childhood and adulthood, trying to figure out where she fit in the world. Matthew pulled up to their meeting spot at exactly 7 p.m., expecting to find his sister waiting with her usual complaints about being hungry or her excitement about the horror movie they'd been planning to see. Instead, he found an empty park and a phone that went straight to voicemail with every call. The timeline of that night tells a story that gets more disturbing the closer you look at it. Celeste had posted a selfie around 6 p.m. with the caption, "Movie night with my bro," but she never made it to that meeting. Somewhere in that hour between posting about her plans and the time she was supposed to meet Matthew, something happened that changed everything. The initial response was what you'd expect. Maybe she was running late, maybe she forgot, maybe something came up. But as minutes turned to hours and calls went unanswered, the family's concern escalated into something approaching panic. Maria Hernandez's maternal instincts told her immediately that something was seriously wrong. The search began that night and continued for over 16 months. The Hernandez family plastered missing person flyers throughout Lake Elsinore, organized search parties, and used social media to spread awareness about Celeste's disappearance. They had no way of knowing that their daughter was already dead, or that her body would eventually be found in the car of the very artist whose music had soundtracked her final months. Celeste's disappearance exposed some harsh truths about about how missing. Teenagers are treated by law enforcement, especially kids from working-class Latino families in suburban communities. The initial classification as a runaway rather than a potential abduction reflected both resource limitations and biases that potentially cost crucial investigative time. The statistics make it clear why cops might default to assuming teenage disappearances are voluntary. Hundreds of thousands of young people are reported missing every year, and most eventually come home safe. But this triage system fails to account for the unique vulnerabilities that make teenagers attractive targets for predators, especially in the digital age. One detail that haunts everyone who follows this case is how Maria Hernandez had mentioned months before the body was discovered that Celeste was dating someone named David. At the time, it seemed like normal teenage romance, a boyfriend that parents hadn't met yet, which is pretty typical for suburban 15-year-olds. But when Celeste's decomposed body was found in the Tesla registered to David Anthony Burke, that casual mention of a boyfriend named David took on chilling significance. The timing, the secrecy, the behavioral changes, everything suddenly made sense in the worst possible way. When the truth hit different. By September 2025, over 16 months after Celeste vanished, her case had gone cold in the public consciousness. The family was still pushing for answers, still hoping for a miracle, but the media had moved on to newer tragedies. Then came the discovery that would blow up the internet and turn a missing person case into one of the most shocking celebrity scandals in recent memory. September 8, 2025. Workers at Hollywood Tow on North Mansfield Avenue were just doing their regular routine when they caught a whiff of something that made them want to throw up. That unmistakable smell of death was seeping out of a black Tesla Model 3 that had been sitting in their lot, probably for weeks. In LA, expensive cars get abandoned all the time. Breakdowns, repo situations, rich kids who crash daddy's whip and just walk away. Nobody thought twice about another Tesla collecting dust. But when that California heat intensified the stench coming from the frunk, everybody knew they were dealing with something way more serious than a parking violation. When LAPD forced that trunk open, they found a scene straight out of a horror movie. Wrapped in black plastic was a human body, decomposed so badly it only weighed 71 pounds, about half what 15-year-old Celeste had weighed when she disappeared. The level of decay suggested she'd been dead for months, which meant she was probably killed around the time she vanished. But even with all that decomposition, certain details survived that would crack the case wide open. The clothing matched exactly what Celeste was wearing the night she disappeared. White tube top, black leggings, yellow chain bracelet, stud earrings. And there it was, still visible on what remained of her right index finger. That red ink tattoo had become her signature. The car registration revealed a name that sent shockwaves through the music industry and the internet. David Anthony Burke, better known as David, the indie R&B sensation whose song Romantic Homicide had been streaming in bedrooms and cars across America for the past 3 years. For Maria Hernandez, the call from investigators was the phone call every parent of a missing child dreads, but also secretly hopes for. Final answers, even when those answers are the worst possible news. After 16 months of uncertainty, false leads, and sleepless nights, she finally knew what happened to her baby girl. "I knew it was my baby. The description matched everything," Maria told reporters, her voice cracking as she spoke about receiving the news that ended her months of hoping for Celeste's safe return. The identification process was handled with extraordinary care given the condition of the remains. Dental records provided the primary confirmation, backed up by DNA analysis and that distinctive tattoo. But it was the yellow chain bracelet, a gift from Matthew for her 15th birthday, that really broke the family's hearts and confirmed what they already knew in their guts. Matthew's reaction hit different when he realized his sister's murder was connected to a global celebrity. "She was on her way to see a movie with me, but never came back. We knew she knew David, but this," he told reporters, his words capturing the surreal nature of discovering that his sister's death involved someone whose music millions of people knew. When news broke about the body in his Tesla, David's team moved fast to establish his whereabouts and create distance between him and the crime. His legal squad released detailed tour schedules, flight records, and hotel receipts designed to prove he wasn't in LA when the body was discovered. At the time, investigators found Celeste's remains. David was performing in Minneapolis as part of his Withered World Tour, with his next show scheduled in Seattle. This alibi was solid for the immediate time frame, but it raised bigger questions about when exactly the body had been placed in the vehicle and whether David had helped or had disposed of the body much earlier. His management released a carefully crafted statement that emphasized cooperation while avoiding any admission of responsibility. David has been informed about what's happened, and although he is still out on tour, he is fully cooperating with the authorities. But David's personal response told a completely different story. After posting a cryptic 6-7 inches on social media, numbers that sent his fan base into overdrive trying to decode their meaning, he went ghost on all platforms. The contrast between his team's professional cooperation and his personal disappearance from social media suggested someone who was struggling to maintain his composure under pressure. The immediate cancellation of his Seattle show cited unforeseen circumstances, and within 48 hours, major brands started quietly cutting ties. Crocs and Hollister pulled advertising campaigns featuring David, while streaming platforms began flagging his content with warnings about the ongoing investigation. Once news broke about the connection between David and Celeste's murder, social media turned into the world's largest crime scene investigation. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit became battlegrounds where millions of amateur detectives analyzed every piece of available evidence and created theories that ranged from plausible to completely unhinged. The timing coincidences alone were enough to drive conspiracy theorists into overdrive. David's music video for Romantic Homicide was released on September 7, 2022, Celeste's 13th birthday. The video featured his blindfolded character shooting an on-screen girlfriend before cradling her lifeless body in the rain, imagery that now seemed disturbingly prophetic. Internet sleuths began frame-by-frame analysis of every David music video, noting that the actress chosen to play his victim in Romantic Homicide bore a striking resemblance to Celeste. Similar hair texture, comparable build, even some facial features that seemed too coincidental to ignore. The staging of the death scene, with the victim's body carefully positioned and the killer showing no emotion, eerily paralleled how investigators believed Celeste's body had been prepared for concealment. But the real fuel for online speculation came from the alleged Discord conversations and the leaked track titled Celeste that started circulating on social media platforms. Screenshots of supposed conversations between David and a user named Celeste began spreading, though their authenticity couldn't be verified. The alleged Discord logs, dating back to 2022 when Celeste was just 12 years old, showed what appeared to be classic grooming behavior. David allegedly positioning himself as an understanding mentor, gradually isolating his target from other relationships, encouraging secrecy about their communications, and slowly escalating to more inappropriate topics. The leaked demo titled Celeste, supposedly recorded in December 2023, just months before her disappearance, allegedly contained lyrics about innocence lost and a girl who slipped away. One particularly damning line allegedly described red ink promises that can't be broken, potentially referencing the shh tattoo both David and Celeste shared. The shh tattoo connection became the most debated piece of evidence in the case. Both David and Celeste had the same design and the same red ink on their right index fingers, leading to intense speculation about what it meant and whether it proved a direct relationship between them. Supporters of David argued that the tattoo was common among celebrities and influencers, pointing to similar designs worn by everyone from Rihanna to Lindsay Lohan. They claimed the shared tattoo was pure coincidence, just two people independently choosing a popular design. The discovery of Celeste's body transformed David's entire musical catalog from entertainment into potential criminal evidence. Every lyric, every music video, every social media post was suddenly being analyzed not as artistic expression, but as possible confession or foreshadowing of real violence. Romantic Homicide became the centerpiece of speculation about his guilt. Lines like, "In the back of my mind you died, and I didn't even cry. No, not a single tear," suddenly read like literal confession rather than metaphorical description of emotional numbness after breakups. Critics pointed out that the song's success had been built on millions of listeners identifying with what they thought were metaphorical descriptions of heartbreak. The possibility that these lyrics might have been literal descriptions of actual murder recontextualized everything about David's artistry and the relationship between fictional violence and real-world crime. In his earlier Zach Sang Show interview, David had attempted to explain his creative process in ways that now seemed potentially incriminating.
It's all of them. I try to include a piece of myself in every part of the music, but I try to get like every different perspective I can, every possible perspective, every possible like viewpoint.
This explanation, which had seemed like artistic maturity when it was first recorded, now raised disturbing questions about what perspectives David was actually exploring and how much of himself he was really including in songs about murder and violence. His description of building a cinematic universe with antagonists and protagonists took on sinister implications when viewed through the lens of actual criminal behavior.
But the 4 is like, I replaced the A with it, took out the I, and the 4 is like an ongoing D4vd lore. Like it's 4 universes with all these different characters.
Oh, interesting.
I'm building out this like cinematic universe. In the future is gonna be like a whole bunch of different stuff. I can't spoil too much now, but it's like I got this blindfold character that you see in my music videos. That's gonna expand into like these different antagonists and protagonists and like a whole anime thing. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy.
Critics argued that David had used his artistic persona as cover for planning real violence, creating a fictional framework that would provide plausible deniability for actual criminal behavior. The blindfolded character that appeared throughout his visual content, rather than representing artistic vision, might have symbolized his desire to remain unseen while committing acts of violence. The response to David's case split along predictable lines in hip-hop and urban communities. Some saw it as another example of a young black artist being railroaded by a system that's always ready to assume the worst about successful black men. Others argued that the evidence was too overwhelming to ignore, and that protecting abusers in the name of racial solidarity only perpetuated harm against vulnerable young women. The conversation got particularly heated around the role of artistic expression in criminal cases. Hip-hop has a long history of artists facing legal consequences for lyrical content that prosecutors argue represents confession or evidence of criminal intent. Many in the culture saw the David case as potentially setting dangerous precedents for how violent artistic content could be used against black artists in criminal proceedings. But the counter-argument was just as real. When your art perfectly predicts a real murder, when your lyrics describe exactly what happened to an actual victim, when your music videos seem to rehearse the crime you're accused of committing, that's not artistic expression anymore. That's evidence. The generational divide was sharp too. Older heads who grew up understanding that rap was often fiction, that artists played characters and told stories that weren't necessarily autobiographical, were more willing to separate David's music from the criminal allegations. But younger listeners, particularly those in David's core demographic, had developed different relationships with artists who built their brands on authenticity and emotional vulnerability. The most loyal fans organized harassment campaigns against anyone who suggested David might be guilty, sending death threats to journalists covering the case, to internet users who shared incriminating evidence, and even to Celeste's family members who spoke publicly about seeking justice for their daughter. Beyond the specifics of David's case lies a broader reckoning about how hip-hop and social media culture handles the protection of young fans, particularly young women, from predatory behavior by powerful figures within the community. The music industry's historical failure to protect young women from exploitation by male artists is well documented, from R. Kelly to countless other cases that never made headlines. But the digital age has amplified both the scale of potential predation and the tools available for grooming vulnerable fans. Whether David's music was prophecy, confession, or just tragic coincidence, one thing is certain: Celeste Rivas Hernandez deserved better than the fate she received. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.
We have been telling you about a body parts found in the trunk of a Tesla owned by the singer David. We now know who the victim is in this case, and there are a lot of twists and turns.
Apparently, the victim was David's girlfriend, Celeste Rivas. In a shocking twist, new party footage has surfaced showing the couple getting cozy just hours before the murder. Now, questions are being asked. Was it a lover's quarrel gone wrong, or is there more to the story? We got all the details right here. Let's break it down. The murder revelation. When headlines first linked David's name to the death of a teenage girl, the reaction was disbelief. For years, he was seen as the quiet breakout artist, a prodigy whose songs carried melancholy but not menace. Yet beneath the surface of his rapid ascent, fragments of a darker story began to surface, a story in which art, life, and tragedy blurred until the truth could no longer be ignored. The story begins with a car left abandoned in the Hollywood Hills. Residents noticed a vehicle parked in the same spot for days, unmoving, windows shut, giving off a faint but unmistakable odor. The car, a Tesla, was eventually towed by authorities after 3 days in violation of local parking rules. Once at the impound lot, the staff noticed the stench intensifying. Upon opening the trunk, the discovery was horrifying. Dismembered human remains sealed in a bag. The vehicle's registration led investigators to its owner, David Anthony Burke, known globally by his stage name David, the 20-year-old breakout indie musician from Houston. Police confirmed the car was registered in his name, instantly transforming the story from an unknown Jane Doe discovery into a celebrity-linked homicide investigation. The public shock was immediate. Initial police statements described the remains as being badly decomposed. Identification was difficult, but one detail stood out: a tattoo on the victim's right index finger, etched in red ink, reading "shh." This clue was released before the victim's name. It was Celeste's mother who stepped forward. She told investigators that her missing daughter bore the same tattoo, and crucially, she revealed her daughter had a boyfriend named David. Within days, the remains were confirmed to be those of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, who had been reported missing the previous year after multiple runaway incidents. Her final disappearance was different. She never returned. The confirmation that the body in David's Tesla was Celeste's triggered a storm of speculation, accusations, and media frenzy. TMZ's coverage framed the revelation bluntly.
We have have been telling you about a body parts found in the trunk of a Tesla owned by the singer David. We now know who the victim is in this case, and there are a lot of twists and turns.
Yes, the victim, as it turns out, is a 15-year-old girl named Celeste Rivas.
The parallels between Celeste and David extended beyond the tattoo. Photos circulated online showing David himself with the same shh tattoo on his right index finger. His version was in black ink, but its placement was identical. Though the tattoo style was popularized by celebrities like Rihanna and Lindsay Lohan, the coincidence fueled speculation of an intimate connection between the singer and the underage victim. The mother's statement compounded suspicion. She insisted her daughter's last known interactions involved a boyfriend named David, and though she never personally met him, she described the eerie detail of her daughter leaving with him one evening, never to return. While law enforcement maintained caution, refusing to label David a suspect or even a person of interest at that stage, the narrative spiraled online. Academics' live stream reaction reflected the internet's shock and suspicion.
It really all started when a Tesla was impounded in a Los Angeles tow yard. Inside the trunk contained the human remains of a 15-year-old girl who had been missing since last summer 2024, named Celeste Rivas.
Forensic teams noted the car had been parked in the Hollywood Hills before being towed. Reports indicated the Tesla was left near a house linked to David's management, later searched by LAPD homicide detectives who removed a computer and evidence bag. This proximity between the car's location and his known residence added another layer of suspicion. Despite the discovery, David did not immediately address the matter. He continued his ongoing tour, performing in multiple cities. TMZ noted that only after public pressure did he cancel select dates, including one in Seattle.
The latest thing about David, as we said, police have not named him, but we do know that he canceled for the first time since all of this has been going on. He canceled a show. He had another one scheduled in Seattle tonight.
The incongruity was striking. While headlines screamed about a dismembered girl in his car, David was seen on stage distributing merchandise to cheering fans. This disconnect heightened suspicion. How could a performer continue as if untouched by scandal when the trunk of his own car was the crime scene? The timeline made matters worse. Celeste had gone missing over a year prior, in April 2024, when she was just 13. Her body was only recovered in September 2025. The implication that she could have been dead for much of that period, hidden in a vehicle tied to David, raised unanswerable questions. The contradictions in law enforcement's approach did little to quiet speculation. Police confirmed that multiple individuals had access to David's vehicles, but they also confirmed that the Tesla had not been reported stolen. This meant David, or someone close to him, knew of its whereabouts. Yet despite this, he remained free, cooperating, but not charged. Academics voiced the public.
I mean, how this guy could not be a person of interest, I do not know. Like, if there had to be at least one person of interest in this situation, it would be him.
Confusion. Adding to suspicion, David's artistic catalog suddenly became evidence in the court of public opinion. Fans revisited his breakout track Romantic Homicide, whose lyrics included the line, "In the back of my mind, you died." Though David had previously explained this as metaphorical storytelling, the coincidence now seemed sinister. Music videos were also re-examined. In one, he places a body in the trunk of a car. In stage performances, he incorporated funeral imagery, including caskets and wreaths. Though likely conceived as theatrical metaphors, audiences now saw these as confessions hidden in plain sight. The investigation also revealed that Celeste had been mentioned in leaked material. A song allegedly titled Celeste, written in late 2023, contained chilling references to her name and presence. Whether authentic or fabricated, its circulation online only deepened the belief that David had both personal and artistic ties to the victim. Compounding suspicion were the digital traces. Discord messages, alleged iCloud leaks, and photos showed David interacting with a girl resembling Celeste. Screenshots suggested her presence in his servers as early as 2022, when she would have been around 11. If true, this placed their association years before her death, making the case even more disturbing. Meanwhile, skepticism mounted regarding law enforcement's hesitancy. As TMZ reported,
the LAPD Homicide Division is investigating this case. They still have not said it's a murder.
Correct. Meaning that they don't know the cause of death.
Despite dismemberment and concealment in a bag inside a trunk, officials maintained caution, avoiding premature charges. Their stance frustrated the public, who saw the act of dismembering as self-evident evidence of foul play. The Tesla itself became a focal point. With its advanced surveillance features, external cameras, location tracking, and event data storage, commentators speculated it held crucial evidence. Academics noted the irony.
This goddamn Tesla should be the key. If this is the case, if David did this, he's the dumbest nigga on earth. Why the hell would you go in Elon's on-road spaceship that records everything and go do a crime and then leave the body in the trunk.
Public attention now turned not only to David himself, but to the gaps in the story. How could a car tied to him sit abandoned for months, reeking of decomposition without intervention? Why was he still free to perform? And how could his music, long celebrated for its emotional rawness, now appear as prophetic confession? By the middle of September 2025, the murder revelation was not just a crime story, it was a cultural shockwave. A rising star once hailed as the voice of disaffected youth was now entangled in one of the most disturbing celebrity-linked cases in recent memory. The truth was beginning to surface, but the deeper context, his rise, his relationship with Celeste, and the trail of evidence would unravel in the chapters that followed. The disturbing connection. With the revelation that 15-year-old Celeste Rivas had been found dismembered in a Tesla registered to David, the public focus shifted from shock to scrutiny. The question was no longer only what happened, but how deeply was he connected to her? To answer that, investigators in online communities began piecing together fragments of his history, his digital trail, and his art, uncovering a disturbing web that blurred the line between personal relationships and public performance. Celeste's timeline provided the first clues. She had been reported missing multiple times, but her disappearance in April 2024 was permanent. She was just 13 years old. For over a year, she remained absent from home until her body was identified in September 2025. Her mother's testimony reinforced the suspicion that David had been involved, as she directly referenced a boyfriend named David connected to her daughter's final outings. The discovery of matching tattoos amplified the narrative. Celeste's tattoo, shh, inked in red on her right index finger, was identical in placement to David's own black ink version on the same finger. TMZ underscored the coincidence.
We found photos from last September where he has on his pointer finger of his right hand
the same finger as hers.
The same exact finger, the exact same tattoo. It's in black, so it's not red ink.
While the tattoo had been popularized by celebrities years earlier, the fact that both bore it suggested a connection beyond chance. Online sleuths soon uncovered digital evidence linking the two. Screenshots emerged from Discord servers where Celeste allegedly interacted with David. According to leaked conversations, she was present as early as 2022, when she would have been around 11 years old. These servers appeared filled with young fans, with David directly engaging. Allegations followed that he even compensated certain users to remain silent about his interactions with her. Images from Discord, along with leaked iCloud photos, appeared to show David alongside a girl resembling Celeste. Some leaks dated back to 2023, others closer to her disappearance. The authenticity of all these materials remained debated, but the volume of them made denial difficult. Academics highlighted these leaks live.
Photos started popping up saying it was the two of them together, like this one. There was also a bunch more pics and videos that leaked that showed David with a girl that resembled this girl.
The leaks extended beyond imagery. Alleged direct messages between Celeste and David painted a troubling picture of their relationship dynamic. In one, she reportedly complained about her parents restricting her from attending his shows, stating, "My parents are so annoying." He allegedly replied with reassurance, promising to fix it. If authentic, these messages placed him in contact with her while she was unmistakably underage. Further complicating matters was the circulation of an unreleased track, allegedly titled Celeste. Lyrics attributed to the song included chilling references: "Smell her on my clothes, I say it hurts," and Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Whether real or AI generated, the timing of the leak combined with his known lyrical themes fueled a sense of foreboding. Even his most famous song, Romantic Homicide, was re-examined under this lens. David had previously explained the lyric "In the back of my mind, you died" as metaphorical storytelling. Academics recalled this explanation.
The hook, "In the back of my mind, you died." I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died.
Yet with the discovery of Celeste's body in his trunk, that lyric shifted from artistic expression to possible confession. Other lyrics surfaced with darker resonance. A leaked track referenced obsession, possession, and the smell of a lover's presence lingering like cigarettes. His TikTok reposts, seemingly innocuous at the time, were retroactively seen as disturbing. One read, "Imagine we were two cannibals in the late 80s, then you died and I ate your bone." Another, "Me watching her scream after I poured boiling water on her after she told a boy happy birthday." These posts, once dismissed as dark internet humor, took on sinister implications. Live performances also came under review. Fans documented that he staged concerts with funeral imagery, caskets, wreaths, and mournful atmospheres. At the time, these were seen as theatrical flourishes to match his melancholic music, but in retrospect, they appeared macabre, as if foreshadowing Celeste's fate. Academics remarked on this irony.
He was bringing a casket, a wreath, and a notepad. That's kind of crazy, given the fact that he was using some type of imagery of a funeral at his shows. But if it's true, the girl that got killed, she didn't get a funeral.
Witness testimony further connected him to Celeste. A teacher from her school publicly stated that she had vanished after meeting a rapper named David. The teacher described how Celeste disappeared for a month, returned briefly after police intervention, and then vanished again in 2024. When the teacher learned of her death, she identified David as the same individual her students had mentioned. This account established not only that Celeste knew him, but that their association predated her final disappearance. Even Reddit threads became sources of information. On September 8, 2025, the day news of the Tesla discovery broke, a user posted that a missing girl from Lake Elsinore had been last seen with David. The post suggested she had been exploited by older figures and expressed fear she might be the body in his car. Initially dismissed as speculation, it later appeared eerily accurate. These connections pushed fans, critics, and media outlets to reconsider the boundary between David's art and his life. His catalog was reinterpreted as a breadcrumb trail. Music videos featuring disappearances and grief, lyrics about death and possession, stage designs evoking funerals, all were reevaluated as potential evidence. To many, it seemed as though he had been embedding confessions in plain sight. The circumstantial case strengthened with his online silence. Following the discovery, David refrained from commenting directly. His last social media post before the news broke was cryptic, consisting only of the numbers 6 and 7. The meaning was unclear, but its proximity to the revelation of Celeste's death prompted speculation. Fans interpreted it as symbolic, a countdown, or even a coded acknowledgement. Meanwhile, brands that had collaborated with him quickly severed ties. Crocs and Hollister dropped campaigns featuring his music. Other sponsors and influencers unfollowed him across platforms. Even Jason the Wine, a recent collaborator, initially defended him but later distanced himself.
He's not a suspect.
Tesla.
I don't think it's him because he's been on tour.
Yet days later, Jason joined the wave of unfollows. The LAPD continued to maintain procedural caution. Despite searching his residence and seizing devices, they did not immediately label him a suspect. Officials stated that multiple people had access to his cars, and the Tesla had not been reported stolen. Still, this position frustrated the public, who viewed the body's discovery in his trunk as self-evident grounds for charges. The Tesla's technology promised answers. With external cameras, GPS data, and cloud-linked event recording, the car could theoretically provide a timeline of who drove it, where it traveled, and when the trunk was accessed. TMZ acknowledged this possibility.
Teslas are very sophisticated cars. You could at least see who dropped that car off.
Who was driving it? Perhaps you might be able to see who put the body parts
in the trunk.
Investigators reportedly subpoenaed Tesla for this data, but at the time of reporting, no results had been released. The proximity of the Tesla to David's rented Hollywood Hills residence only added to suspicion. Police confirmed the car had been parked less than 100 feet from the house before being towed. This raised the likelihood that Celeste's body was stored within reach of his known location. Amid this, speculation about motive remained unresolved. Some theorized the relationship had soured, leading to violence. Others suggested blackmail or manipulation was involved, pointing to alleged messages from Celeste's peers indicating attempts to extort David for money in exchange for silence. Still others raised the possibility of a setup, though the evidence leaned heavily against such an explanation. What became clear was that David and Celeste were connected by more than coincidence. Digital trails, eyewitness accounts, tattoos, leaked media, and even his own lyrics converged into a disturbing picture. Whether or not he was directly responsible for her death, he was undeniably intertwined with her life and with the circumstances that ended it. By late September 2025, the case had shifted from tragedy to obsession. Fans dissected every lyric, every post, every photo. Media outlets mined archives for symbolism. Police worked methodically, while the public demanded swift justice. The disturbing connection between David and Celeste had surfaced, and it was impossible to unsee. But this was only the beginning. The investigation would intensify, family members would speak, collaborators would retreat, and Tesla's data would loom as the silent witness. The next chapter would reveal how the truth of this connection reshaped not only the case, but the public's perception of David himself. The truth surfaces. By late September 2025, the murder of Celeste Rivas had transformed from a shocking discovery into a sprawling investigation that consumed media cycles, fan communities, and law enforcement resources. With the victim identified, the body traced to a Tesla registered to David, and digital evidence linking the two, the case entered a new phase. The question shifted from whether there was a connection to how deep that connection ran, and whether the truth would ever emerge in full. The LAPD formally transferred the case to its robbery homicide division, confirming it was being treated as a homicide. Yet police remained cautious in their public statements. Officials reiterated that the cause of death had not yet been determined. Despite the dismemberment and concealment, they avoided labeling it outright murder until forensic results were complete. TMZ summarized the ambiguity.
The LAPD homicide division is investigating this case. They still have not said it's a murder.
Correct. Meaning that they don't know the cause of death.
This procedural neutrality frustrated the public. As commentators pointed out, accidental deaths do not typically result in dismembered remains hidden in a trunk. The very act of concealment suggested intent.
If someone fell down the stairs and broke their neck in an accident, why would you dismember the body?
Yet the absence of formal charges allowed David to remain free, at least temporarily. One of the most compelling threads was the Tesla itself. With cameras on every side, GPS tracking, and advanced data storage, investigators expected the vehicle to provide critical evidence.
Teslas are very sophisticated cars. And there have got to be pictures, you would think, because there are
cameras all over it, and we know that the Tesla has a lot of information. There's data that the police can get.
Law enforcement reportedly subpoenaed Tesla for its data, seeking timestamp footage and location records. The car, abandoned within 100 feet of a residence linked to David's management, was positioned as the silent witness to the crime. Parallel to the forensic investigation were the testimonies of those who had known Celeste. Her mother had already spoken, confirming the tattoo and naming David as her daughter's boyfriend. Her teacher provided further detail, recounting how Celeste first disappeared after meeting him, returned briefly after being found in Hollywood, and then vanished again in 2024, never to return. According to this account, Celeste openly told peers that she had met the Houston-born rapper on social media. The alleged involvement of her family surfaced through online speculation. A widely circulated Reddit post from September 8, 2025, claimed that Celeste's older sister had been exploiting her, introducing her to older men and facilitating her disappearance. Though unverified, the post's accuracy in predicting that Celeste was the body in David's Tesla gave it weight. If true, it suggested a wider context of exploitation surrounding the case. Celeste's brother also became a focus. Users reported that he was contacted directly after her identity was revealed, and he allegedly claimed that the family had attempted to involve police earlier, but were dismissed due to lack of evidence. Whether authentic or not, these claims fed the narrative of systemic failure, that warning signs were ignored until it was too late. The cultural fallout for David was immediate. Brands including Crocs and Hollister cut ties. Collaborators who had once defended him reversed their positions. Jason, the Wine, who only days earlier declared his belief in David's innocence, unfollowed him publicly. Other influencers, celebrities, and music industry figures distanced themselves. His label, Interscope, remained silent, but speculation mounted about his contractual future. Meanwhile, his fan base fractured. Younger audiences, who had propelled him to fame through platforms like TikTok, now found themselves divided between defending their idol and condemning him. TikTok comments and Twitter threads became battlegrounds of interpretation. One user declared, "He's 20 and she was 15. He's a pedophile and a murderer. He needs to be locked up now." Another countered with skepticism. "I'm usually an innocent until proven guilty type of person. But with the amount of evidence against David, you're delusional if you think he's innocent." David's silence only deepened suspicion. He refrained from statements, appearances, or explanations. His last post before the news broke, a cryptic 6 and 7, became the subject of speculation. Fans theorized it referenced dates, codes, or even a countdown. Without clarification, it became another puzzle piece in a narrative already oversaturated with ambiguity. The recontextualization of his art continued. Fans dissected not just romantic homicide, but also his stagecraft and online reposts. Videos showed him carrying caskets onto stages, performing in funereal setting, and incorporating imagery of death. Lyrics once interpreted as symbolic heartbreak were now read as literal confession. His reposts, cannibal fantasies, boiling water violence, obsessive love, circulated as evidence of his mindset. This blending of art and reality raised larger cultural questions. Was David embedding Easter eggs in his work, as some suggested? Academics framed it this way.
But this guy kind of seems a little bit sadistic, like he was trying to get caught.
Others argued the interpretation was retrospective bias, where audiences imposed meaning after the fact. Regardless, the perception of his work had irreversibly shifted. Theories proliferated online. Some insisted it was a straightforward case of exploitation, violence, and concealment. Others suggested blackmail was involved, citing alleged messages from Celeste's friends describing attempts to extort him. A smaller group clung to the idea of a setup, but the physical evidence, the car, the tattoo, the photos, the leaks, weighed heavily against that defense. Even if he had not directly caused her death, the evidence suggested at minimum that he maintained an inappropriate relationship with her. As commentators noted, this alone would make him culpable in the eyes of the law and the public. Academics captured the sentiment.
Even if he wasn't involved in her passing, it does seem like they dated or were very close based on everything we know, which at the very least, allegedly, would make David a pedophile.
As weeks passed, the investigation's slow pace contrasted with the internet's hunger for resolution. The LAPD had confiscated electronics, subpoenaed Tesla, and searched his residence. But without public charges, speculation filled the vacuum. Fans tracked his tour cancellations, his social media activity, and his associates' reactions for any sign of movement. The broader consequences of the case extended beyond one artist. It reignited debates about the vulnerability of young fans in parasocial relationships, the responsibility of platforms like Discord and TikTok in moderating interactions, and the music industry's duty to vet its rising stars. Critics pointed out that many of his fans were themselves teenagers, raising ethical questions about the imbalance of power between artist and audience. By October 2025, the truth that had surfaced was not definitive closure, but a constellation of disturbing facts. Celeste and David were connected through tattoos, through digital evidence, through witnesses, through leaks. Her body was found in his Tesla, dismembered and hidden. He continued to tour, silent in public, while brands, collaborators, and fans withdrew. Police held data and devices that could clarify the narrative, but their findings remained sealed. The case stood unresolved, but its cultural impact was complete. David, once a breakout artist celebrated for melancholic authenticity, was now the center of one of the darkest intersections of celebrity, fandom, and crime in recent history. Whether guilty of murder, guilty of exploitation, or guilty of silence, the truth that surfaced had already transformed his career, his reputation, and the memory of the girl whose name was now inseparable from his own. The revelation of Celeste's murder began with a smell from an abandoned Tesla. It ended, at least for now, with the haunting realization that fame, art, and tragedy had converged in ways no one could ignore. The investigation would continue, answers might come, but the disturbing connection and the cultural shockwave it caused ensured that David's name would forever be spoken in the same breath as the truth that had surfaced. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.
So singer David is in some hot water.
New footage of D4vd changes everything. This new footage has put David, known as D4vd, in serious hot water. Pulled from CCTV at the parking lot where his Tesla was left, the clip doesn't just show the car, it captures a fight breaking out beside it. But the real question is, who was with David that night, and what exactly was happening before that car became the center of a shocking discovery? Stay with us to know the chilling details. The footage that changed everything. The images and footage are grainy but unmistakable. A black Tesla Model 3, police tape wrapped tight around it, and officers clustered under the glow of flashing red and blue lights. Then comes the moment that freezes the world in disbelief. A coroner's team carefully sliding a body bag out of the car's trunk. The footage, captured at an impound lot in Los Angeles, is more than shocking. It is chilling proof that a missing girl's story has collided with the rising career of one of Gen Z's biggest music stars. Los Angeles has always been a city of contrasts. It's a place where glamour and decay often sit side by side, where flashing paparazzi cameras capture stars walking out of luxury hotels, while just a few blocks away, someone is being arrested on Skid Row. But even in a city that has seen more than its share of shocking headlines, nothing could have prepared people for what unfolded on September 8, 2025. At first, it seemed like routine business at Hollywood Tow, an impound lot tucked behind busy streets near Mansfield Avenue and Romaine Street. Workers there were used to dealing with abandoned cars. They'd seen it all before. Dusty vehicles left for weeks, stripped down shells of stolen rides, even the occasional rat nest inside a glove compartment. But that day, something was different. Something was wrong. A black Tesla Model 3 had been brought in just 2 days earlier, on September 6th. The vehicle, sleek and still relatively new, had Texas license plates and looked like it should have belonged to someone successful, someone who could afford the luxury of an electric car. But it had been left abandoned on a quiet road in the Hollywood Hills, parked for nearly a week before residents finally complained. When the tow truck dragged it down to the lot, nobody thought much of it. After all, abandoned cars weren't unusual in the hills. Yet by the morning of September 8th, the staff began to notice something no one could ignore: a horrible stench. Workers described it as sharp, overwhelming, and unmistakable. It wasn't just the smell of garbage or spoiled food left behind in a car. It was something deeper, something that clung to your throat and made your stomach turn. One worker later admitted to reporters that he instantly knew what it was. "That's not trash," he said. "That's death." Alarmed, they called the police. Officers from the Los Angeles Police Department's Robbery Homicide Division responded quickly. They had heard this kind of call before. Suspicious odors from vehicles often led to grim discoveries, but no one expected what they were about to see. When officers popped the hood, expecting perhaps drugs or contraband hidden away, what they actually found was a sight straight out of a nightmare. The front trunk, the frunk of the Tesla, contained a large plastic bag, and inside it, a body, severely decomposed, beyond recognition, a crime scene hidden in plain sight. Even among hardened investigators, there was a hush. Some turned away, others stared, unable to believe it. For the impound workers, it was traumatizing. They had to grapple with the idea that the car they had been walking past every day carried a dead teenager inside. But the shock was only just beginning. The Tesla wasn't just any car. A quick records check confirmed it was registered to David Anthony Burke, a 20-year-old musician better known to the world by his stage name D4vd's. He wasn't some unknown celebrity in the making. He was one of the most recognizable new voices in music, the creator of viral hits like Here With Me and Romantic Homicide. His songs had been streamed hundreds of millions of times. His TikTok following had exploded, and in 2025, he was in the middle of his sold-out Withered World tour. At the very moment investigators were zipping up evidence bags in Los Angeles, Burke himself was on stage across the country, performing to thousands of screaming fans. He had no idea that his abandoned car had just become the centerpiece of a homicide investigation.
So singer David is in some hot water. Previously, it was reported a dismembered body was found in the trunk of his car while he was on tour. Today, the dead body was identified as a 15-year-old who's been missing since she was 13.
The LAPD quickly clarified that the case was being treated as a homicide investigation, though they stopped short of naming Burke as a suspect. Still, the damage was done. Public opinion doesn't wait for official statement. Overnight, D4vd's carefully crafted image, the quiet, introverted gamer-turned-musician, the Gen Z artist with a sad boy aesthetic, was shattered. Fans felt betrayed. How could the same young man who once told interviewers he made songs out of loneliness, who spoke openly about his faith and his struggles with isolation, now be connected, even tangentially, to a decomposing body in his own car? The footage of officers at the impound lot, the flashing police lights bouncing off the Tesla's glossy paint, became one of the most chilling visuals of 2025. And though investigators insisted that no arrests have been made and no suspects identified, for many, the question was already formed in their minds. For days after the discovery, the body found in the trunk of that Tesla remained officially unidentified. Police released only the barest details. The remains were female, badly decomposed, and clearly had been hidden for a long time. But behind the scenes, forensic specialists were already working tirelessly to give the victim back her name. On September 17, 2025, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office released its findings. The body was that of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a teenager from Lake Elsinore, Riverside County, California. The confirmation shook people to their core. For Celeste's family, who had lived in limbo for more than a year, it was the nightmare ending to a story they had prayed might turn out differently. Celeste had been reported missing on April 5th, 2024. That spring afternoon, she told her brother Matthew she was heading out to see a movie with him. Somehow, somewhere along that short journey, she vanished. She was just 13 at the time. Her family searched desperately. They plastered missing posters around Lake Elsinore, begged for help online, and filed repeated reports with the Riverside County Sheriff's Office. Yet weeks turned to months, months turned to a year, and hope began to erode. To lose a child to disappearance is a cruel kind of torture. Every knock on the door could be news. Every unidentified body could be them. And now, on September 17th, 2025, that cruel uncertainty was replaced by finality. Their little girl was gone. Celeste's physical details painted a haunting picture. She was small, just over 5 feet tall and barely 71 pounds. Her long, wavy black hair had once been a feature she was proud of, according to friends. When her remains were found, she was wearing the same clothes she had last been seen in, a tube top, black leggings, and a yellow metal bracelet shaped like a W, along with simple stud earrings. And then there was the tattoo, a delicate inscription on her right index finger. That read, "Shh." That single mark would become the most chilling piece of the puzzle.
The girl and David have matching tattoos on their hand. The mom of the girl recalls hearing from her that her boyfriend's name is David, which just happens to be the name of David, spelled with a 4, his performance name. David is 20 years old.
For Celeste's mother, the tattoo was the first confirmation that it was her daughter. She told TMZ she had suspected it all along. When the LAPD announced they had found the body of a young girl inside a Tesla, and then described her size, her clothes, and her jewelry, she knew in her heart. She also revealed a detail that has fueled speculation ever since. At the time of her disappearance, Celeste had told her she had a boyfriend named David. Her mother never met him. She never saw his face. But that name, David, would return with devastating force once it was tied to the car owner, David Anthony Burke. The more the details came out, the more impossible it seemed to dismiss them as coincidence. The tattoo match, the boyfriend's name, the fact that the Tesla was registered directly to Burke, not stolen, not borrowed. For many online, the picture was becoming clear long before the LAPD issued any formal conclusions, but the heartbreak was personal before it was ever public. Celeste's family launched a GoFundMe page to cover her burial services and legal expenses. Friends described her as sweet and studious, a girl who once attended Lakeland Village School and dreamed of doing something meaningful with her life. Her mother's grief spilled over into every media interaction, the disbelief, the anger, the hollow exhaustion of waiting for answers that might never bring peace. By this point, the case was no longer just a local homicide investigation. It was becoming a global scandal, and the questions were only multiplying. How long had Celeste been dead? How had her body ended up in the front trunk of a Tesla? And most importantly, what connection, if any, did David Anthony Burke have to the girl whose remains had just been identified? Fans pointed back to his viral hit, Romantic Homicide, which had lines like, "In the back of my mind, you died." The song's release date, reportedly the same day as Celeste's birthday. Was it a coincidence or something more sinister? Let's go back to David's history for answers. The controversial history of D4vd. Long before his name became linked to a homicide investigation, David Anthony Burke, known professionally as D4vd, was considered one of Gen Z's most unlikely success stories. To his fans, he embodied the dream of turning isolation into inspiration, transforming the hours spent gaming alone into songs that touch millions worldwide. Born in Queens, New York in 2005, Burke's early life was far from glamorous. He was raised in a devout Christian household and homeschooled until his teenage years, a sheltered upbringing that left him outside the rhythms of typical school life. While other kids made friends in classrooms and cafeterias, Burke's world was smaller. Church choirs, family Bible study, and video games in his bedroom. That loneliness would later become the fuel for his music. By 2017, when Fortnite exploded onto the gaming scene, Burke was one of the first to dive in. The Battle Royale game became an obsession. Hours turned into days as he and a tight group of online friends combed through updates, tested new strategies, and perfected their gameplay. Soon, Burke wasn't just playing. He was uploading montage videos to YouTube, hoping to carve out a space in the booming world of gaming content creators. At first, hardly anyone noticed. His earliest uploads scraped together a few hundred views at best. But then Burke noticed something. The videos that included music, synced cuts, flashy edits backed by songs everyone recognized, performed better, much better.
So basically, I played Fortnite from 2017 to 2021. Game came out in 2017. I was one of the first people to ever play the game. So I played that game. I became a YouTuber.
Burke began experimenting. He added mainstream tracks from popular artists into his Fortnite montages, and suddenly the numbers skyrocketed. Videos that once had a few hundred views were pulling in 200,000, 300,000, even millions. For the first time, it felt like things were clicking. But there was a catch. The same music that boosted his views also triggered copyright strikes. By 2021, Universal Music Group and other labels had flagged his videos, cutting off his ad revenue. Overnight, the money dried up. Burke, still a teenager, was devastated. He turned to his mother, venting about how his dream of being a gaming YouTuber was collapsing. Her answer was dismissive but life-changing. Just make your own music. That piece of motherly tough love pushed Burke into a new direction. On December 21st, 2021, he downloaded a music-making app onto his iPhone, grabbed his Apple earbuds, and transformed his sister's closet into a makeshift studio. Robes, blankets, and clothing acted as soundproofing. He searched YouTube for emo piano-type beats and started freestyling into the mic. That was how the first D4vd songs were born. The learning curve was steep, but Burke had something most others didn't: instinct. His very first tracks found small traction on SoundCloud, boosted by the right hashtags, #emo, #lofi, #slowed, and reverb. Soon, Fortnite creators began using his music in their videos. The momentum built quickly. One early track, You and I, exploded, racking up 100,000 streams in just 3 days. Suddenly, Burke was no longer just a gamer who made background tracks. He was an emerging artist with a sound that resonated far beyond the gaming community.
And I looked up how to make music on iPhone, and this app called BandLab comes up. I click on it, I put my Apple earbuds in, and I use my sister's closet as the studio. So I'm like in here, it's dark, we got like robes and everything, blankets, whatever. And I'm looking up tight beats on YouTube.
By 2022, Burke had created the viral hit that would define him, Romantic Homicide. Unlike his earlier upbeat tracks, this one was slow, heavy, and filled with melancholy. His own mother hated it, calling it too violent, which in Burke's mind only confirmed that he was onto something. When he released it on TikTok, it spread like wildfire, racking up millions of plays almost instantly. Alongside it came another breakout single, Here With Me, which captured the dreamy, emotional aesthetic that TikTok thrived on. By the time both songs crossed into mainstream mainstream charts, Burke was no longer just a bedroom musician. He was a star. In 2023, he released his first EP, Petals to Thorns. In early 2025, his debut album Withered followed, supported by a world tour that sold out venues across North America and Europe. Collaborations with artists like Kali Uchis solidified his standing. By mid-2025, he had millions of followers on TikTok and Instagram and over 33 million monthly Spotify listeners. To outsiders, it looked like the perfect Gen Z fairy tale. A homeschooled gamer, raised on church hymns, turns his loneliness into art and becomes a superstar. He embodied vulnerability and creativity, someone who had stumbled into fame by accident, even telling interviewers he never planned to be a musician. But as we now know, the past doesn't always stay hidden. Behind the polished tracks and the soft-spoken persona, there were already shadows forming. As the Celeste Rivas case unfolded, screenshots began to leak from online forums, particularly Discord servers dating back to 2023. These unverified images appeared to show Burke interacting with a girl who resembled Celeste, then barely a teenager. Posts claimed he had been closer to her than he ever admitted. Some suggested he had even been photographed with her. Blurry, grainy images circulating online that fans insisted were proof of a secret relationship. Then came the allegations of a song called Celeste, supposedly recorded in 2023. Metadata tied to Interscope Records appeared to link Burke to an unfinished demo with that name. Lyrics allegedly referenced themes of longing and romance, and after the body was discovered, listeners claimed the track was inspired by the very girl found in his car. Even more disturbing were accusations from online communities that Burke may have begun an inappropriate relationship with Celeste when she was as young as 12 or 13. Some threads went as far as alleging he had paid hush money to conceal interactions with minors. None of these claims have been verified by police, but in the fevered environment of social media, the absence of clarity only fanned the flames. One particularly persistent rumor accused Burke of paying hush money to silence underage girls he had interacted with. While no official evidence has surfaced to support this, the claims have circulated widely on TikTok and Reddit, amplified by users convinced they are uncovering a hidden pattern. Burke, the quiet introvert who once claimed he imagined heartbreaks to write music, was now being recast as something far more sinister, a predator who had groomed a teenager, hidden her body, and perhaps left a trail of clues in his own songs. Beyond the alleged connection to Celeste, Burke's public record remained mostly clean before 2025. He avoided beefs with other artists, choosing instead to stay in his own lane. Even when other TikTok-born musicians clashed online, D4vd rarely engaged. That, ironically, is why the scandal hit so hard. There was no prior drama to prepare fans for something of this scale. Let's now tell you a recent development of the case. Initial investigations and consequences. The discovery of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body inside a Tesla Model 3 registered to David Anthony Burke, the musician known as D4vd, threw the Los Angeles Police Department into one of its most high-profile investigations in recent memory. From the moment the black Tesla was pried open at Hollywood Tow, detectives knew they were dealing with a case that would demand precision, speed, and a public already hungry for answers. The Tesla was sealed off with crime scene tape, and the entire impound lot became an evidence zone. Forensic teams worked late into the night, photographing the vehicle from every angle before removing the body. The condition of the remains was shocking. The coroner's office later described the body as being in an advanced state of decomposition, consistent with having been hidden for weeks, possibly months. Inside the car, investigators documented everything: fingerprints, DNA traces, fibers, soil samples, even air quality readings. Every inch of the Tesla, from its seats to its glove box, was swabbed. The car's digital systems were also of particular interest. Teslas are essentially computers on wheels, constantly logging GPS routes, door openings, and even driver profiles. Detectives knew that unlocking that data could provide a minute-by-minute timeline of where the car had been and who had access to it.
Yeah, it was impounded right here in Hollywood.
No way. That's for sure evidence. If it's a body found in there, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, they're gonna scrub that. But I mean, obviously his DNA is gonna be in it, and her DNA is gonna be in it. I feel like if they don't find other DNA,
bro. Either way it goes, she's been missing. That's a missing child.
Is he arrested yet?
But despite the disturbing find, there was no immediate arrest. That decision frustrated many watching online. Commenters flooded X with accusations that the LAPD was protecting Burke because of his celebrity status. Others argued the opposite, that police were deliberately building an airtight case to avoid any chance of defense lawyers claiming sloppy work. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office worked to officially identify the remains. Dental records confirmed what Celeste's tattoo had already suggested: the body was hers. But the cause of death was not so simple. On September 17th, the coroner listed the cause of death as deferred, meaning toxicology tests and further analysis were required. This ambiguity fueled speculation. Was Celeste killed violently? Did she overdose? Was she suffocated or poisoned? Without clarity, social media filled the silence with its own theories. Some pointed to romantic homicide as a confession of murder. Others claimed she may have been drugged to keep her silent. Each new rumor spread faster than the last. At the same time, detectives began reconstructing Celeste's last known movements. They revisited the night of April 5th, 2024, when she was last seen by her brother Matthew after a trip to the movies. They interviewed neighbors in Lake Elsinore. They pulled phone records, social media DMs, and location pings. Each clue painted a partial picture of a girl who had simply vanished, until she reappeared a year later in the most horrifying way possible. The focus inevitably returned to Burke, his Tesla, his registration, his name tied to the crime scene. Detectives subpoenaed his travel records, cross-referencing his 2024-2025 tour schedule with the timeline of Celeste's disappearance. They dug into his cell phone history, Discord logs, and emails. Even his family home in Houston reportedly became part of the inquiry. Publicly, LAPD spokespeople were cautious. They confirmed the case was being treated as a homicide, but they stopped short of naming Burke as a suspect. "We are following all leads," one statement read. Privately, however, the tension was undeniable. Detectives were racing against time, not just to solve a case, but to stay ahead of a wildfire of conspiracy theories that threatened to overwhelm the facts. But the deeper investigators dug, the more they realized this case was about more than one teenager's tragic end. It was becoming a collision between celebrity, fandom, and justice, and the world was demanding answers. In the absence of clear answers from police, speculation filled the void. Within hours of the LAPD confirming that the remains belonged to 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the internet had turned into a courtroom with D4vd as the defendant. On TikTok, creators began dissecting his lyrics line by line, arguing that songs like Romantic Homicide and Here With Me were thinly veiled confessions. One popular video stitched the lyric, "In the back of my mind, you died," with images of Celeste's missing posters captioned simply, "Was he telling us all along?" On Reddit, entire threads popped up under titles like "Timeline of D4vd and Celeste." Amateur sleuths mapped his concert tour stops against the timeline of her disappearance, pointing out every moment his whereabouts seemed unclear. Some even went so far as to claim he deliberately scheduled shows in cities far from Los Angeles to build an alibi. Theories spiraled fast. Some insisted that Burke had been in a secret relationship with Celeste, pointing to their alleged matching tattoos as proof. In this new age of fan detectives, every scrap of information became evidence. Old live streams were replayed frame by frame. Photos were zoomed in to search for background figures who might be Celeste. Even metadata from unreleased demos was scoured by internet sleuths looking for hidden references. But speculation wasn't limited to his fans. Mainstream media outlets began weighing in too. Some highlighted the bizarre coincidence of the matching tattoo. Others ran with Celeste's mother's statement that her daughter once mentioned a boyfriend named David. Each new detail, no matter how small, became headline fuel. The most explosive theory came when whispers of an unreleased track called Celeste surfaced. Allegedly recorded in 2023, the song was said to contain lyrics about a forbidden love and a tragic ending. Though no official release existed, supposed leaks of snippets spread like wildfire. Whether authentic or not, the internet treated it as gospel. Meanwhile, some defended Burke. Loyal fans argued that the evidence was circumstantial. The tattoo was a common design. Rihanna had it too. The demo leaks were unverified. And in a world where artists often write about fictional scenarios, pointing to song lyrics as proof of guilt seemed reckless. To them, the real tragedy was Celeste's death being hijacked by conspiracy theories. Still, the tide of public opinion leaned heavily against him. Hashtags like #ArrestDavid Burke trended daily. Memes mocked him as the real romantic homicide. Petitions circulated online demanding Spotify and YouTube remove his music until the investigation was complete. For Celeste's family, watching the frenzy was unbearable. Her mother told TMZ she felt as though her daughter's death had become a spectacle, stripped of dignity and turned into entertainment. But their pleas for privacy were drowned out by the roar of speculation. For detectives, the viral storm created both opportunities and obstacles. On one hand, tips poured in. People combing through Burke's digital footprint sometimes unearthed leads worth checking. On the other hand, the sheer volume of noise made it hard to separate fact from fiction. Every baseless rumor meant more resources spent disproving false claims. And yet, the theories would not stop. Every day seemed to bring a new angle, a new supposed revelation, a new piece of circumstantial evidence that only deepened the mystery. By mid-September 2025, one thing was clear. This was no longer just an investigation. It had become a trial by social media, one in which the verdict was being decided not in a courtroom, but in comment sections and viral videos. The question wasn't just what happened to Celeste. It was whether D4vd could ever escape the narrative being built around him, a narrative growing darker and more elaborate with each passing day. While investigators combed through evidence, the music industry moved faster. Interscope Records, which had signed Burke, reportedly entered emergency meetings about whether to suspend his contract. Collaborators scrambled to distance themselves. Kali Uchis confirmed she no longer wanted her name associated with him, leading to the removal of Crashing from playlists. Streaming platforms faced petitions with tens of thousands of signatures demanding his songs be pulled. Venues began canceling his fall tour dates. By September 20th, at least 4 shows were officially called off, with ticket refunds announced quietly through promoters. For an artist who once boasted 33 million monthly listeners on Spotify, the collapse was swift and merciless. What had taken years to build seemed to unravel in days. Among fans, the fracture was complete. One side, once loyal supporters, turned on him, scrubbing his music from their playlists and posting angry videos with captions like, "We supported a monster." Others doubled down in his defense, calling the investigation a witch hunt and pointing out that no charges had yet been filed. On X, one user summed up the split bluntly: "It's either the biggest setup in music history or the darkest scandal we've ever seen." The debate grew toxic. Some fans went after Celeste's family online, accusing them of exploiting their daughter's death. Others harassed Burke's relatives, digging up old photos and addresses. What should have been a fight for justice turned into a digital battleground, with a grieving family caught in the crossfire. For law enforcement, the case became a test of public trust. Could the LAPD prove they were pursuing truth and not protecting a celebrity? Every day without an arrest was seen by some as evidence of corruption. For the Rivas family, the consequences were deeply personal. Their daughter's story was consumed by the machinery of celebrity scandal, her memory overshadowed by hashtags and clickbait headlines. And for Burke, the consequences were existential. Even if police later cleared him, the court of public opinion had already rendered its verdict. His once carefully built persona, the homeschooled gamer, the sad boy poet, the humble Christian musician, was shattered. In its place stood an image far darker, a man whose art, his past, and his very identity were now inseparable from tragedy. As September drew to a close, no arrests had been made. Toxicology results were still pending. The Tesla's black box data was still under analysis. But in the eyes of the world, the case had already changed everything. What began as a missing person report in 2024 ended as a global scandal in 2025. A grieving family was left with more questions than answers. A young girl's life had been cut short, and a rising star's career was in ruins, perhaps forever. What are your thoughts on this case? Share them in the comments and click the card on screen for more.
One that says, "Me watching her scream after I poured boiling water on her after she told a boy happy birthday because why you happy, he made it another year." Just weird stuff. That's super weird to repost, especially under this context.
When investigators found 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body chopped up in a Tesla trunk on September 8, 2025, they thought it was just another brutal murder case. But then they checked D4vd's TikTok, and what they uncovered was insane. Let's get into details. When TikTok posts expose a killer's true colors, we talking about D4vd, real name David Anthony Burke, a 20-year-old artist who thought he was slick, building his come up through viral TikTok hits like Romantic Homicide and Here With Me. But check this, homie was out here posting content that was basically a digital confession to murder, and nobody peeped game until it was too late. This ain't your typical rapper gets in trouble story. This is some next level psycho got the whole internet shook. Real talk, when they found 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body chopped up in this dude's Tesla trunk on September 8, 2025, investigators thought they had a regular murder case on their hands. But when they started digging through bro's social media, man, they found a whole treasure map of crazy that had been sitting right there in the open, and everybody just thought it was regular dark humor. Turns out this fool's TikTok reposts were basically a play-by-play of what he was planning to do. Now listen, I've seen some wild my time covering these streets, but this case right here, this got me questioning everything about how these young cats be moving on social media. Because what investigators found wasn't just some random violent posts, this was a whole systematic documentation of a killer's mindset laid out for anyone with eyes to see. The first red flag that got the detectives' attention was this repost of a dude chopping up raw chicken with the caption, "Me if I see her talk with other dudes." Now, any regular person would look at that and think, damn, toxic as hell. But when you find out that Celeste's body was literally dismembered, that post hits different. That ain't just jealousy talking. That's a straight up blueprint for murder, posted up for his whole timeline to see. But hold up, it gets worse. This clown also reposted the American Psycho nail gun scene with the caption, "Me after hearing about her past with other boys, I'm jealous and utterly disgusted by her actions." Bro was really out here using movie scenes to telegraph his violent intentions, and everybody just scrolled past like it was regular content. The saying jealousy and disgust he was talking about, that lined up perfectly with what investigators learned about his relationship with this little girl. What really got me tight about this whole situation is how this dude had multiple reposts about killing partners, dismembering them, mental health struggles, and mock funerals. Like homie was creating a whole curriculum for murder on his social media, and people were just liking and sharing this content like it was bars or something. Online discussions described these posts as fetishizing murder, and that's exactly what it was. This fool was getting off on the fantasy before he made it reality. The most foul part, D4vd's TikTok profile picture was a bloody, blindfolded Hello Kitty. Now, you might think that's just some edgy aesthetic choice, but hold that thought. Celeste was last seen wearing Hello Kitty sandals and carrying a Hello Kitty keychain, and she loved that character. So this wasn't just a random profile pic. This was this sicko putting his victim's favorite character on his page like some twisted trophy. That's some real predator behavior right there. The Hello Kitty situation gets even more demonic when you realize he posted a video on February 7th, 2024, captioned, "When your card declines at therapy and they bring in that one Hello Kitty girl you met in 2021. That wasn't no meme, family. That was him confessing to meeting Celeste online years earlier, hiding the truth in plain sight like some kind of sick game. But the piece that really had investigators heated was this cryptic "I miss her" repost he shared alongside violent memes. They think this was him talking about Celeste after she went missing, but instead of helping find her, this demon was posting about missing her while knowing damn well where she was, cut up in his trunk. That's some sociopathic behavior that would make Jeffrey Dahmer proud.
All right, so chat, there's a rapper named David that I didn't know that much about, but apparently I actually talked to the guy before.
What's really crazy is how this fool managed to build a whole career off the same emotions that drove him to commit murder. His song Romantic Homicide got billions of streams, and everybody thought it was just some heartbreak music. But now investigators think this track might have been a confession disguised as art. Like this dude was literally profiting off singing about his own crimes. The investigation showed that all these TikTok posts were from before they found the body, described as old videos. That means this psycho was fantasizing about murder publicly for months or even years before he actually did it. This wasn't no crime of passion or heat of the moment situation. This was premeditated violence that homie was documenting like he was keeping a diary. Online communities started comparing his content to Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff, and that comparison ain't even exaggerated. Just like Dahmer, this dude seemed to get pleasure not just from the violence itself, but from the psychological games, the hints, the clues, the way he could hide his true nature while building up his public image as some sensitive indie artist. What's really disturbing is how calculated all this was. Every repost, every caption, every piece of content seemed carefully chosen to document his mental journey toward violence. This wasn't random posting or just being edgy for clout. This was a systematic record of someone's descent into becoming a killer, all while he was gaining followers and building his brand. The case completely changed how law enforcement looks at social media evidence in murder cases. D4vd's TikTok activity wasn't just background information or character evidence. It was literally a roadmap showing his motivations, his planning process, and his psychological state throughout the whole period leading up to Celeste's murder. Every repost was a breadcrumb, every caption was a confession, and every piece of shared content was another piece of the puzzle. The real story behind the headlines. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was only 15 years old when they found her remains, but her story with this demon D4vd started way earlier than anybody first realized. What the investigators uncovered was some real predator that began when baby girl was just 11 years old, a whole grooming process that got documented across multiple platforms, and a timeline that showed how this sicko's violent fantasies slowly turned into deadly reality.
It was the body of a young girl named Celeste who would have just turned 15 years old.
Okay, so another thing that's kind of confusing me about this whole thing, I got some Casamigos. Nothing that's confusing me about this whole thing. She was last seen on April 5th.
Real talk, Celeste was described by her family as a beloved daughter, sister, cousin, and friend. A young shorty who loved Hello Kitty and had her whole future ahead of her. She was petite at about 71 pounds, had wavy black hair, and was last seen wearing a tube top, black leggings, a yellow metal chain bracelet, and stud earrings. But these details don't capture the real tragedy. How a vulnerable young girl became prey for some sick individual who was documenting his predatory behavior online like it was content. The timeline of Celeste's situation with D4vd is some real, disturbing when you look at it alongside his social media activity. Reports show they might have linked up online as early as 2021, when Celeste was just 11 years old. So while this fool was building his music career and crafting his image as some deep artist, he was simultaneously grooming a baby behind the scenes, a process that would eventually end with her murder. Celeste went missing in April 2024 at age 13, reported by her family to the Riverside County Sheriff's Office. Her disappearance didn't get treated like the emergency it should have been, partly because she had run away from home multiple times before. This pattern of running away, which investigators now think was connected to her situation with D4vd, meant that when she disappeared for good, crucial opportunities to save her got missed. What makes this whole thing even more heartbreaking is the evidence that Celeste's family knew she was in some kind of secret relationship with someone named David. Her mother revealed that Celeste had been dealing with this individual, and a former teacher said that Celeste met him online through social media. The fact that family members and teachers knew about this relationship but couldn't prevent what happened shows how hard it is to protect kids in our digital world.
Her brother told NBC News that he was aware that his sister knew the singer David. Matthew Rivas said when she went missing, she was on her way to see a movie with him, but never returned.
The physical evidence connecting D4vd to Celeste was as sick as it was obvious. Both of them had matching tattoos on their right index fingers, with Celeste's done in red ink. This wasn't just some coincidence. This was a mark of ownership, like this predator was literally branding his victim. The medical examiner confirmed this tattoo detail, which her family verified as something police hadn't released to the public. But the digital evidence was even more damning. Screenshots from D4vd's Discord server from 2022, when Celeste was just 12 years old, show interactions between them. These weren't innocent fan conversations. They documented a grooming process that went on for years, with D4v slowly building trust and isolating Celeste from people who could help her. They found an unreleased track titled Celeste_Demo Unfen from December 2023 that references Celeste with some really intimate lyrics, including disturbing lines about tattoos and obsession. This song, discovered during the investigation, provides a chilling soundtrack to D4vd's mental state in the months before Celeste's murder. Those lyrics weren't artistic expression, they were a confession set to beats. When they found Celeste's body, it was as tragic as it was revealing. On September 8th, 2025, workers at a Hollywood tow impound lot reported a foul smell coming from an abandoned Tesla. When LAPD checked it out, they discovered Celeste's decomposed remains in a bag inside the front trunk. The whip was registered to D4vd, but he wasn't driving it recently since he was on tour outside of Los Angeles. The condition of Celeste's body told its own horrific story. Her remains weren't intact, with reports confirming dismemberment, exactly matching the violent fantasies D4vd had been sharing on social media for years. The body had been decomposing for a long time, possibly months, based on the state of the remains. This timing suggests that Celeste got murdered around the time D4vd started his tour, letting him keep up his public image while knowing her body was rotting in his car.
15-year-old Celeste Rivas as the person who was found dead at a Hollywood tow yard in early September in the trunk of singer David's Tesla. The medical examiner is still trying to determine the cause of her death.
What investigators found most disturbing was how calculated this whole crime was. The Tesla was abandoned in the Hollywood Hills, about 1.5 blocks from where D4vd had been staying. This proximity wasn't random. It let D4vd keep tabs on the situation while maintaining plausible deniability about his involvement. The car had been parked there for about 5 days before getting towed, and during that whole time, D4vd kept touring and posting on social media like nothing happened. The digital evidence showed just how much D4vd had been planning and fantasizing about violence against Celeste. Online speculation includes possible motives like jealousy, pregnancy scares, or worries about career damage from a relationship with a minor. But the social media evidence suggests something way more sinister, that D4vd got pleasure from the psychological torture and ultimate murder of someone he had been grooming for years. Photos and live streams from October 2023 show D4vd with a girl who looks like Celeste at a Los Angeles event, proving their relationship wasn't limited to online interactions. These public appearances, combined with the private Discord conversations, paint a picture of someone who was boldly flaunting his relationship with a minor while simultaneously documenting his violent fantasies online. The investigation also revealed a Reddit comment from 8 days before the public identification that mentioned a missing girl from Lake Elsinore connected to D4vd. This suggests that people in D4vd's circle knew about the connection between him and Celeste's disappearance long before law enforcement made the link public. raising questions about why nobody came forward sooner.
Top of all of this, a song leaked that I can't confirm if it's real, but it's called Celeste. Apparently, David wrote it in 2023, and the lyrics are kind of crazy.
The timeline gets even more disturbing when you think about D4vd's touring schedule. He was able to keep up his public persona and continue performing while knowing that Celeste's body was decomposing in his vehicle. This level of compartmentalization shows a deeply antisocial personality capable of extreme deception and emotional detachment. The family has expressed devastation over their loss, with Celeste's mother confirming details about the tattoo that police hadn't released to the public. A GoFundMe campaign has been organized to help with burial costs, highlighting the additional trauma of a family forced to crowdfund their daughter's funeral while processing the horrific details of her murder. What makes this case particularly tragic is how many red flags got missed or ignored. Celeste's brother reportedly told police about the relationship with D4vd, but it got dismissed for lack of evidence. This failure of the system to protect a vulnerable child, combined with D4vd's ability to hide his true nature behind a carefully crafted public persona, allowed a preventable tragedy to unfold. The digital evidence shows this wasn't some impulsive crime or a moment of passion gone wrong. This was a calculated murder committed by someone who had been fantasizing about violence for years, documenting those fantasies on social media and using his growing fame to access and groom vulnerable young fans. How social media became the smoking gun. The breakthrough in connecting D4vd's TikTok activity to Celeste's murder didn't happen overnight, you feel me? It required a whole new approach to digital forensics, one that recognized social media not just as background noise, but as a potential goldmine of evidence that could reveal a killer's mindset, planning process, and psychological evolution toward violence. On September 18, 2025, LAPD ran up on a Hollywood Hills house where D4vd had been staying with a search warrant, marking a major escalation in the investigation. The search focused on blood evidence, with investigators specifically checking drains for traces of blood or tissue. Several items got seized for forensic analysis, but it was the digital evidence that proved most damning. What investigators discovered when they analyzed D4vd's social media activity was unprecedented in scope and disturbing as hell in its implications. They found that his TikTok reposts and captions weren't random expressions of dark humor, but rather a systematic documentation of violent fantasies that lined up perfectly with the details of Celeste's murder.
Why the hell would you go in Elon's on-road spaceship that records everything and go do a crime and then leave the body in the trunk? Nigga, it probably got you chopping her up. It probably got all type of in a hard drive.
The Tesla itself became crucial evidence in ways that D4vd apparently never anticipated. Modern Tesla whips are basically computers on wheels, recording extensive data about their usage, location, and even internal camera footage. If evidence from Tesla vehicles helped solve other high-profile cases, then D4vd's choice to use his Tesla in connection with Celeste's murder was perhaps the most catastrophic mistake he could have made. The social media analysis revealed patterns that were impossible to ignore. D4vd's repost of a dude chopping raw chicken with the caption, "Me if I see her talk with other dudes," took on prophetic significance when viewed alongside Celeste's dismembered remains. This wasn't just coincidence. This was evidence of premeditation, showing that D4vd had been fantasizing about dismembering Celeste specifically in response to jealousy over her interactions with others. The American Psycho repost, with its caption about jealousy and disgust, provided additional insight into D4vd's psychological state. The reference to being utterly disgusted by her actions suggested that D4vd viewed Celeste not as a victim, but as someone who had somehow wronged him and deserved punishment. This victim-blaming mentality is consistent with the psychology of perpetrators who justify extreme violence through distorted thinking patterns. Perhaps most chilling was investigators' realization that D4vd's Hello Kitty-themed profile picture and posts weren't aesthetic choices, but rather trophies commemorating his relationship with Celeste. The February 7th, 2024 video captioned about "That one Hello Kitty girl you met in 2021 inches" wasn't just a random meme. It was D4vd publicly referencing his grooming of Celeste while hiding the true meaning in plain sight. The investigation also revealed how much D4vd had manipulated those around him. Reports suggest he paid other young people in his Discord server to keep quiet about his relationship with Celeste, creating a network of complicity that helped him avoid detection for years. This systematic approach to covering up his crimes demonstrates a level of premeditation and manipulation that goes far beyond a simple crime of passion.
Like, if the mom of the victim knew that she was dating someone named David, did did she not know his age? And I'm not blaming her specifically, but it seems like the people around her knew a bit about it, like the guy from the Reddit post who apparently knew that she ran off with David.
The professional consequences for D4vd's have been swift and comprehensive. His record label Interscope paused promotions for the deluxe version of his album Withered, while major entities including Universal Music Group, Sony Music Publishing, and Wasserman halted all activities. Sponsors such as Crocs and Hollister removed campaign content featuring D4vd, and he canceled his entire US and world tour. The timing of some of D4vd's social media posts has taken on new significance in light of the investigation. Fans pointed out that his last Instagram post promoting the deluxe version of his album was made on September 7th, which was Celeste's 15th birthday. Her body was discovered the next day. This timing couldn't have been coincidental. It suggests that D4vd was deliberately commemorating Celeste's birthday, while knowing that her remains were decomposing in his whip. The public reaction has been one of horror and disbelief. Online discussions on platforms like X, Reddit, and TikTok have exploded, with users compiling evidence threads and expressing outrage. Many fans have expressed an inability to listen to his music anymore, while others have drawn comparisons between D4vd's content and that of notorious serial killers.
And apparently, like, all the people that knew, especially some of the other little kids, looked like this was like a little kid server he was in. He would pay these kids to not say anything. He would give them money.
What makes this case particularly significant for law enforcement is how it demonstrates the evolution of criminal behavior in the digital age. Traditional investigations focused on physical evidence, witness testimony, and conventional behavioral analysis. But D4vd's case shows how social media can serve as a real-time confession, with perpetrators unconsciously, or perhaps consciously, documenting their criminal fantasies and activities for posterity. The investigation has also highlighted the challenges of protecting children in online spaces. Despite evidence that people knew about D4vd's relationship with Celeste, including family members and educators, the mechanisms for intervention failed catastrophically. This case will likely lead to new protocols for handling reports of inappropriate relationships between adults and minors, particularly when those adults have public platforms and influence. The cause of Celeste's death remains deferred pending further forensic analysis, but the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. The combination of matching tattoos, documented interactions, leaked photos and videos, an unreleased song referencing her by name, and most importantly, the social media evidence showing D4vd's violent fantasies creates a compelling case for his involvement in her murder. As of the latest updates, D4vd has not been formally charged, but he continues to cooperate with authorities through his representatives. The investigation remains active, with forensics ongoing and no timeline for resolution. However, the social media evidence has fundamentally changed how this case is being prosecuted, providing investigators with unprecedented insight into a killer's mindset and methodology. The tragic irony of this case is that D4vd's rise to fame was built on his ability to connect with young fans through social media, the very platform he would later use to document his violent fantasies and ultimately confess to his crimes. His song Romantic Homicide may have been intended as a metaphor for heartbreak, but in light of the evidence, it reads more like a confession set to music. Celeste's family continues to seek justice, with a GoFundMe campaign helping to cover burial costs scheduled for October 5th, 2025. Their loss serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of our failure to adequately protect children in digital spaces and the devastating consequences when warning signs are ignored or dismissed. This case will undoubtedly change how law enforcement approaches social media evidence in violent crimes, how platforms monitor concerning content, and how society protects vulnerable young people from online predators. But for Celeste Rivas Hernandez, these changes come too late. Her death serves as a tragic reminder that behind every viral post, every streaming statistic, and every social media interaction, there are real human lives at stake. The digital breadcrumbs that D4vd left on TikTok weren't just evidence of his crimes. They were a roadmap showing how online platforms can become complicit in violence when concerning behavior is normalized, ignored, or dismissed as entertainment. As we continue to navigate the complex relationship between social media and real-world violence, Celeste's story must serve as both a warning and a call to action for protecting the most vulnerable members of our digital communities. Real talk, this whole situation shows us that we need to start taking this social media more seriously. When somebody's posting about violence, dismemberment, and weird obsessions with specific people or characters, that ain't just content. That might be somebody telling us exactly what they planning to do. We can't keep sleeping on these red flags and treating everything like it's just entertainment. Lives are at stake, and Celeste's story proves that the warning signs are often right there in front of us. We just need to start paying attention. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content. David casually requested this live stream be deleted. The girl laughing beside him was 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. 4 months later, she vanished without a trace until her dismembered body was found in his car. Now, we finally got hold of the last footage of Celeste alive, and it may just crack the case wide open. The discovery that shook Hollywood. On the morning of September 8, 2025, workers at Hollywood Tow on North Mansfield Avenue noticed something unusual about a sleek black Tesla Model 3 that had been sitting untouched in their lot for weeks. The vehicle bore Texas license plates, had a noticeable dent in its frame, and most concerning of all, emanated a sickly, pungent stench that grew stronger the closer anyone approached. The Tesla had been impounded on August 15th after sitting abandoned near the Hollywood Hills, just blocks from some of the entertainment industry's most exclusive addresses. For nearly a month, it had remained unopened in the lot, its glossy black exterior betraying nothing of the horror within. But on that September morning, curiosity finally overcame caution. When staff members finally opened the front trunk, the front, as Tesla owners call it, they were met with something they could never forget: the dismembered and decomposed remains of a young girl, wrapped in black plastic bags. The Los Angeles Police Department arrived within minutes. Crime scene investigators cordoned off the area. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office was summoned, and within hours, what had begun as a routine day at a tow yard had become the center of a homicide investigation that would captivate the nation. The body was quickly identified through dental records as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who had been missing from her family's home in Lake Elsinore, California, since April 2024. She was just 13 years old when she first disappeared, a bright-eyed teenager who loved art, music, and dreamed of a future that would never come. But the revelation that would send shockwaves through the music industry was yet to come, because this Tesla wasn't just any abandoned vehicle. It was registered to David Anthony Burke, the 20-year-old R&B sensation whose meteoric rise had made him one of the most recognizable voices of his generation. To understand why this discovery sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, you need to understand who David Anthony Burke had become in the public eye. He wasn't some underground artist struggling for recognition. He was a bona fide viral sensation, the voice behind haunting hits like Romantic Homicide and Here With Me, songs that blended raw emotional vulnerability with lo-fi production techniques, striking a deep chord with Gen Z listeners worldwide. Born in New York but raised in Houston, Burke had crafted his stage persona as an introspective, almost shy artist who channeled his feelings through music. His breakout track, Romantic Homicide, was famously recorded in his sister's closet using nothing more than an iPhone, earbuds, and the free music app BandLab. The song's haunting refrain about killing someone in the back of my mind had resonated with millions of listeners who interpreted it as a metaphor for emotional heartbreak. Although he did admit that the lyrics for the song were a bit sad.
And then I made Romantic Homicide, and it was so different than everything else I had made because it was actually sad. It was slow, it was sad, it was emotional.
By 2025, D4vd boasted over 33 million monthly listeners on Spotify alone, a staggering achievement that placed him among the platform's most streamed artists. His concerts sold out within minutes. His merchandise flew off shelves. Record labels courted him with multi-million-dollar deals. He had achieved what most artists only dream of: global recognition before his 21st birthday. In interviews, Burke portrayed himself as a young man driven by empathy, creativity, and artistic vision. He spoke often about his love for gaming, anime, and poetry. His music videos featured cinematic storytelling with mysterious characters and symbolic imagery. To his devoted fan base, he wasn't just making music, he was creating an entire artistic universe.
So if you can expel that thought from your mind.
In that interview with Zach Sang, Burke had explained his creative process with what seemed like genuine artistic passion. He talked about building narrative tension, about exploring the darker corners of human emotion through metaphor and symbolism. To his fans, these words represented the mind of a gifted young artist grappling with complex themes through his craft. But in light of Celeste's tragic fate, those same words now carry an eerie, almost prophetic weight. The line between artistic expression and lived reality suddenly seemed disturbingly thin. For the Hernandez family, the news headlines were not shocking revelations, but confirmation of their deepest, most haunting fears. They had lived with uncertainty for over a year, clinging to hope while dreading exactly this kind of call from law enforcement. Celeste had been remembered by those who knew her as a bright, artistic teenager with an infectious smile and boundless creativity. She filled sketchbooks with detailed drawings, spent hours listening to music from various genres, and dreamed of pursuing art in college. Her teachers described her as talented and enthusiastic, though perhaps more trusting than some of her peers. Her family lived in Lake Elsinore, a community about 70 miles southeast of Los Angeles, known for its scenic lake and close-knit neighborhoods. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where teenagers walked to school, and parents felt safe letting their children explore their independence. For the Hernandez family, it had always felt like a protective bubble, until it wasn't. Around late 2022 and early 2023, 2023, Celeste discovered D4vd's music like millions of other young people scrolling through TikTok and Spotify. His melancholic melodies and introspective lyrics spoke to her in the way that certain songs can capture a teenager's emotional landscape perfectly. She began following his social media accounts, commenting on his posts, and sharing his music with friends. According to her relatives, what started as typical fan behavior soon evolved into something far more concerning. Online interactions allegedly became private conversations. Social media comments turned into direct messages, and eventually, digital communications evolved into real-world meetings that her family knew little about. Evidence would later suggest that their relationship had transcended the typical artist-fan dynamic by a significant margin. Most notably, both Celeste and Burke had gotten matching tattoos, small sh symbols inked on their right index fingers. Fans had spotted Burke displaying his tattoo in photos and social media posts since September 2024, but few had understood its significance at times.
We found photos from last September where he has on his pointer finger of his right hand
the same finger as hers.
The same exact finger, the exact same tattoo. It's in black, so it's not red ink.
The tattoo would later become one of the most haunting pieces of evidence in the case, a permanent symbol of secrecy shared between a rising star and a missing teenager. In December 2023, an unreleased demo track titled Celeste had leaked online through various music forums and social media platforms. The song's lyrics were direct and unsettling. "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest, I'm obsessed." At the time, many assumed it was fictional, just another example of Burke's storytelling through song. The timing, however, was particularly significant. This was months before Celeste's disappearance, suggesting the relationship had been ongoing for an extended period. Her mother, Maria Hernandez, had told reporters that before Celeste's disappearance, her daughter had mentioned having a boyfriend named David. The revelation seemed innocuous at the time. David is, after all, one of the most common names in America. No one in the family could have imagined that this David was the same young man whose voice emanated from their daughter's bedroom speakers every night, the same artist whose concerts sold out arenas across the country. The casual way Burke discussed themes of death and violence in his music had once seemed like artistic bravado.
She died, and I didn't even cry, not a single tear.
Young artists often explore dark themes as a way of processing complex emotions and connecting with audiences who feel similarly lost or misunderstood. But listening to these words now, knowing what investigators would later discover, they take on a chilling quality that's impossible to ignore. When Celeste first disappeared in April 2024, she was just 13 years old. Her family filed missing person reports with local law enforcement. Flyers with her photograph were distributed throughout Lake Elsinore and surrounding communities. Social media campaigns shared her information across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, hoping someone might have seen her or know where she had gone. But Celeste's case never gained the widespread media attention that some missing children received. Perhaps it was because she was Latina in a media landscape that often prioritizes certain demographics over others. Perhaps it was because her family lacked the resources and connections to push the story into national headlines. Or perhaps it was simply the cruel reality that hundreds of teenagers go missing every year, and not all of them capture public imagination. Her family never stopped searching, never stopped hoping, never stopped fearing the worst. They organized search parties, contacted local news stations, and maintained active social media accounts dedicated to finding her. But as weeks turned to months, and months stretched toward a year, the leads grew cold and the media attention faded. The footage that changed everything. In the immediate aftermath of the discovery, Burke's representatives issued carefully worded statements expressing shock and sadness at the news of Celeste's death. His legal team emphasized that he was cooperating fully with law enforcement and maintained that any connection between their client and the tragic death was purely coincidental. For several days, this narrative held. While speculation ran rampant on social media and true crime forums, there was no definitive proof that Burke had even known Celeste personally, let alone been involved in her disappearance or death. The matching tattoos could be explained as coincidence. The unreleased song could be dismissed as fiction. Even the fact that her body was found in his car could potentially be explained by theft or some other scenario. But that fragile defense began to crumble in mid-September 2025 when an avalanche of previously hidden footage began surfacing across social media platforms. Suddenly, the whispers and speculation were replaced by visual evidence that told a story of intimate familiarity, deliberate secrecy, and calculated deception. This wasn't just additional evidence. It was a complete reframing of the narrative that made denial impossible and transformed public perception from uncertainty to outrage. The first crack in Burke's defense came from an unexpected source, his own live streams. In January 2024, Burke had been regularly streaming on Twitch, building his fan community through casual gaming sessions and music discussion. These streams typically featured him alone in his setup, chatting with viewers while playing popular games or working on new music. But internet sleuths combing through archived footage discovered something that had been overlooked at the time, a stream from January 2024 where where Burke was not alone. Sitting beside him was a young girl who bore an unmistakable resemblance to Celeste Rivas Hernandez.
Yo, wait.
Oh, look at answer that one. That's so mean if you don't answer.
Which one? What's good to have a big family, bro. Bro, thank you, Mitchell Conjure.
I gotta start with him if you even. We need to delete this.
The clip was brief but devastating. The girl appeared comfortable and familiar with Burke's streaming setup, laughing naturally and pointing at chat messages for him to read. This wasn't the awkward interaction you might expect between a famous musician and a random fan. It was the easy intimacy of two people who clearly knew each other well. But what truly set alarm bells ringing was Burke's request at the end of the stream, his casual suggestion to delete all VODs, video on demand recordings, and clips after the broadcast ended. At the time, his moderators had complied with the request, assuming the girl was at least 18 years old and that Burke simply preferred to keep certain streams private. In hindsight, however, the deletion request looks far more sinister. Why would Burke want to erase evidence of the stream unless he knew that something about it was problematic? The girl's apparent age, combined with the intimate nature of their interaction, suggested that this was not a casual encounter, but evidence of an ongoing relationship that Burke was actively trying to hide. The timestamp on the stream placed it in January 2024, just months before Celeste's disappearance in April. This meant that not only had Burke known Celeste personally, but he had been comfortable enough with their relationship to include her in his public streams, while simultaneously being concerned enough about the optics to request that the footage be deleted. On September 18, 2025, TMZ delivered what many consider the most damaging blow to Burke's credibility. The celebrity news outlet published both a photograph and a short video that had allegedly been sourced from a hacked iCloud account connected to Celeste's social circle. The photo showed Burke and Celeste in an unmistakably intimate pose, arms wrapped around each other, both smiling directly at the camera. But what made the image truly damning was what it revealed about their hands. Both clearly displayed the matching tattoos that had been the subject of so much speculation. The accompanying video was even more devastating. It showed the pair walking together at what appeared to be a small music industry event, whispering to each other and displaying the kind of comfortable physical proximity that suggested a romantic relationship rather than a casual fan interaction. Celeste wore a hoodie emblazoned with Burke's tour merchandise, indicating that she had access to exclusive promotional items typically reserved for industry insiders and close associates. The metadata on these images placed them in mid-2024, months after Celeste had been reported missing by her family. This meant that while her relatives were organizing search parties and distributing missing person flyers, she was apparently alive and actively participating in Burke's professional life. This revelation completely obliterated the narrative that Burke barely knew Celeste, or that any connection between them was coincidental. Here was forensic-level evidence of an ongoing relationship that had continued well into the period when she was officially considered a missing person. Perhaps even more disturbing than the evidence of Burke's relationship with Celeste was what the footage revealed about the broader network of people who seemed to know about and facilitate their interactions. On June 27, 2024, someone had recorded cell phone footage backstage at one of Burke's concerts. The video, which resurfaced on September 19, 2025, showed Celeste wearing an official VIP pass and chatting animatedly with a young man who was later identified as Burke's brother, who worked as part of his touring crew. The casual nature of this interaction was deeply troubling. Celeste wasn't sneaking backstage or trying to get unauthorized access. She had official credentials and was clearly welcomed by Burke's family members. The footage showed her mentioning that she was planning to surprise David later, suggesting that their meetings were regular enough that his family had become accustomed to her presence. This raised profound questions about the scope of knowledge and complicity surrounding their relationship. Did Burke's family know Celeste's real age? Had they been told she was older than she actually was? Or were they aware of her age but chose to look the other way because of their loyalty to Burke? The footage also suggested that Celeste's access to Burke's professional life extended far beyond casual fan interactions. VIP passes at major concerts are typically reserved for family members, industry professionals, and close personal friends. The fact that she possessed one indicated that she held a significant position in Burke's inner circle. For investigators and the public, this evidence painted a picture of a relationship that wasn't hidden from everyone, just from the people who might have been most concerned about its appropriateness, including law enforcement and Celeste's own family. As public scrutiny intensified, internet users began combing through archived Discord servers, old social media posts, photos and cached versions of deleted content. What they discovered was a digital paper trail that seemed to document the evolution of Burke and Celeste's relationship over time. Screenshots allegedly pulled from Burke's private Discord server began circulating on TikTok and Reddit. These images showed conversations where Burke apparently referenced dating someone named Celeste and repeatedly urged other server members to keep things quiet about certain topics. Music critics and legal experts debated whether artistic expression could be used as evidence in criminal proceedings. While lyrics alone are rarely admissible in court, they can provide important context when combined with other evidence. In Burke's case, the songs seem to corroborate rather than contradict the narrative suggested by the physical and digital evidence. Fallout and the search for justice. The release of compelling visual evidence in mid-September 2025 triggered an avalanche of consequences that extended far beyond Burke's personal life. Within hours of the footage going viral, a carefully constructed public image began to collapse, taking with it millions of dollars in business relationships, professional partnerships, and career opportunities. The speed and thoroughness of the industry's response suggested that many insiders had harbored private concerns about Burke's behavior for months or even years. When the evidence finally became undeniable, the entertainment industry moved swiftly to distance itself from potential liability and reputational damage. The first institutional response came from law enforcement. On September 18, 2025, just hours after TMZ published their damaging photographs and video, the Los Angeles Police Department executed a comprehensive search warrant at Burke's rented Hollywood Hills home. The property, located just blocks from where his Tesla had been abandoned, became the center of intense investigative activity. Neighbors reported seeing unmarked police vehicles, crime scene technicians, and what appeared to be cadaver dogs brought to the scene. The search lasted over 8 hours and involved specialists from multiple divisions of the LAPD. Among the items seized during the raid were multiple encrypted hard drives that required specialized software to access, several hidden cameras that had been disguised as everyday household objects, and a notebook filled with coded entries and messages that investigators believed might contain important evidence about Celeste's disappearance and death. The presence of encryption technology and hidden surveillance equipment suggested a level of premeditation and technological sophistication that went beyond simple criminal negligence. These tools indicated someone who was actively working to conceal their activities and monitor their environment for potential threats. The coded notebook was particularly intriguing to investigators. Forensic linguists were brought in to analyze the writing patterns and attempt to decode the messages. Early analysis suggested that the entries might contain references to meetings, locations, and individuals involved in Burke's personal life during the period around Celeste's disappearance. Perhaps most significantly, forensic teams searched the property for any biological evidence that might connect the location to Celeste's death. They examined drains, checked for blood traces, and collected samples from areas where a body might have been processed or stored. While the results of these tests have not been made public, the thoroughness of the search suggested that investigators suspected the house might have been a crime scene. Burke's professional world began disintegrating almost immediately after the evidence became public. The music industry, which had embraced him as a rising star just months earlier, moved with remarkable speed to sever all connections. His ongoing Withered World tour was canceled overnight, leaving thousands of ticket holders disappointed and hundreds of venue workers, security personnel, and support staff suddenly unemployed. The tour had been scheduled to include major venues across North America and Europe, representing millions of dollars in lost revenue, not just for Burke, but for the entire ecosystem of businesses that support major concert tours. The cancellations also highlighted the financial complexity of modern music careers. When a major tour is canceled, the losses extend far beyond the artist's own income. Venues lose booking fees and concession revenue. Local businesses near concert halls lose anticipated customer traffic. Merchandise vendors, sound technicians, lighting crews, and transportation companies all suffer immediate financial consequences. Interscope Records and Universal Music Group, which had invested heavily in Burke's career development, moved quickly to freeze all ongoing projects. Plans for a deluxe edition of his album Afterlife were shelved indefinitely. Music videos that had been in production were halted mid-editing. Marketing campaigns worth hundreds of thousands of dollars were suspended. The label's response reflected the modern reality of celebrity partnerships in the digital age. When public opinion turns against an artist, record companies must balance contractual obligations against reputational risks. The speed with which Burke's label distanced itself suggested that they had conducted their own internal assessment of the evidence and concluded that continued association was untenable. Sony Music Publishing, which controlled some of Burke's songwriting rights, also terminated their relationship. This meant that future royalties from his existing songs would be affected, and his ability to monetize his musical catalog would be severely limited. Perhaps most symbolically devastating was was the response from other artists. Kali Uchis, the respected R&B singer who had collaborated with Burke on the track Crashing, ordered the song removed from all streaming platforms within 24 hours of the evidence being released. Her representatives issued a statement expressing horror and disgust at the allegations and emphasizing that she had been unaware of Burke's alleged activities when they worked together. Other musicians who had previously courted collaborations with Burke began quietly removing his name from their social media accounts, deleting promotional posts, and scrubbing references to planned joint projects. The music industry's response created a clear message. Association with Burke had become professionally toxic. Outside the music industry, corporate partners moved even more aggressively to protect their brand images. Companies that had seen Burke as an appealing spokesperson for Generation Z consumers suddenly viewed him as a liability that could damage their relationships with exactly the same demographic. Crocs, the footwear company that had partnered with Burke on a limited edition shoe collaboration, not only terminated their contract, but also halted production of any remaining inventory bearing his likeness or branding. The company issued a statement emphasizing their commitment to child safety and responsible partnerships. Hollister, the clothing retailer that had featured Burke in their advertising campaigns targeting young consumers, similarly ended their relationship and pulled all marketing materials featuring his image. Other brands that had been negotiating potential partnerships quietly withdrew their offers. The corporate response highlighted how quickly modern brand partnerships can become liabilities in the age of social media. Companies that once coveted associations with viral celebrities now recognize that public opinion can shift overnight, potentially damaging carefully cultivated brand images built over decades. Perhaps nowhere was the impact of the revelations more visible than among Burke's own fan base. His followers had invested not just money, but emotional energy in supporting his career, streaming his music, attending his concerts, and defending him against criticism. The evidence of his relationship with Celeste forced many fans to confront the uncomfortable reality that their idol might have been involved in predatory behavior. Social media platforms became battlegrounds between fans who refused to believe the allegations and others who felt betrayed by Burke's deception. Some fan communities disbanded entirely, with administrators deleting Discord servers, Facebook groups, and fan websites. Others evolved into support networks for people processing their emotions about discovering that an artist they had admired might have committed serious crimes. The psychological impact on young fans was particularly concerning to mental health professionals. Many of Burke's followers were teenagers themselves, and the revelation that someone they had trusted and admired might have been involved in harming someone their own age created complex trauma responses. As of the latest available information, the investigation into Celeste's death remains active. The LAPD has not announced any charges against Burke or anyone else in connection with her disappearance and death. The forensic analysis of evidence seized during the search of his home could take months to complete. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.
According to law enforcement sources, that her body was not intact. And that it appeared that she may have been dead inside that car for an extended period of time.
Disturbing new footage of a teenager found dead in David's car has gone viral, and it's got everyone talking. What's troubling is the fact that David knew the victim, and they were more than just friends. But even though he's hiding the truth about the true nature of their relationship, shocking details are getting exposed, and it's not looking good for David. We've got the full scoop here, so let's get right into it. The beginning of a scandal. On September 8, 2025, employees at Hollywood Tow on Bluebird Avenue made a disturbing discovery. They had received a Tesla just a few days earlier, on September 3rd, after it was towed from Doheny Drive in the Hollywood Hills. Workers at the tow yard reported a foul, unmistakable odor emanating from the vehicle, one that grew more pungent by the day. Finally, unable to ignore it, they alerted the Los Angeles Police Department. What happened next is the kind of scene detectives dread, and one that would soon dominate international headlines. When LAPD officers pried open the Tesla's frunk, the small storage space in the front of the car, they were hit with the stench of death. Inside, wrapped in a bag, was a severely decomposed body. At first, the remains were so deteriorated that investigators couldn't even confirm the victim's gender. The only certainty was that this was no ordinary tow yard discovery. It was the start of a homicide investigation tied to one of music's rising stars, David Anthony Burke, better known as David. According to NBC News, the Tesla was indeed registered in David's name, but registration doesn't always mean recent ownership or active use, and that ambiguity immediately fueled speculation. Who had last driven the car? Why had it been left to sit for weeks in one of the city's most visible neighborhoods? And most chilling of all, how did a dead teenage girl end up inside? For days after the discovery, law enforcement remained tight-lipped. They worked alongside the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office, who struggled to immediately determine the victim's identity due to the advanced state of decomposition. Reports noted that even the victim's gender was initially unclear.
A decomposed, currently unidentifiable dead body has been found in a car out in LA. And who was this car registered to? a famous singer.
But soon, the pieces began to fall into place. On September 17, 2025, officials publicly identified the victim as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, a teenager from Lake Elsinore, California, who had been reported missing since April 2024. The announcement not only confirmed suspicions, but also deepened the mystery. How did a girl who vanished nearly a year and a half earlier end up in the vehicle of one of America's hottest young music stars? The identification hinged on a few key details. Most notably, Celeste had a distinct tattoo on her right index finger reading "shh." According to NBC Los Angeles, that tattoo, along with jewelry she was wearing and other physical markers, provided enough certainty for investigators to link the remains to her. Her mother, devastated but determined, also helped confirm her identity. According to TMZ, Celeste's mother reached out directly to media outlets after hearing about the Tesla discovery, suspecting that the victim might be her daughter. When she first vanished, police and volunteers searched extensively, but with no immediate leads, the case soon grew cold. For more than a year, her family lived in limbo, clinging to hope that she might return. It wasn't until her body surfaced in September 2025 that they had the confirmation they dreaded most. Who was Celeste Rivas? To the outside world, she was a bright, lively teenager born around 2010 who had her whole life ahead of her. Family described her as energetic, curious, and on the cusp of adolescence, but behind that innocence lay troubling signs. Shortly before her disappearance, Celeste's mother revealed that she had begun dating a boy, or perhaps a man, who went by the name David. This was the same name investigators would later note as eerily aligning with David's real identity, David Anthony Burke. Though the family never met this David, the connection would become one of the central threads tying together the tragedy of her disappearance and the shocking discovery in Hollywood. The circumstances around the Tesla itself only made the case stranger. According to Rolling Stone, witnesses reported the car had been sitting in the Hollywood Hills as early as May 2025. That means it may have been abandoned for months before being towed. When workers at Hollywood Tow finally investigated the odor and opened the car, what they found left even seasoned professionals shaken.
Authorities were called to this tow yard. It's called Hollywood Tow. They open the front trunk and they find this body wrapped up in a bag.
The fact that the Tesla sat so long unclaimed raises crucial questions. Why didn't David or anyone connected to him retrieve the vehicle sooner? Could someone else have had access to the car? These mysteries remain central to the LAPD's ongoing investigation.
That the car may just be a secondary location, that there may have been an incident leading to.
How do they process the car? What are they looking for? Fingerprints, DNA, sequence of events? What do they do?
Because Teslas function almost like rolling, investigators also hope to retrieve valuable data, GPS records, door opening logs, dash cam footage, and more. Any of it could help reconstruct who used the car in the months leading up to the grisly discovery.
They store so much data. That car is just as much a computer as it is a vehicle. So there's going to be tons of information stored on the memory board of that car.
As soon as the news broke that a body had been discovered in David's Tesla, the story exploded online. Outlets like ABC7 and CBS raced to confirm details, while gossip sites and fan forums fueled speculation. Fans and critics alike debated whether the singer had direct involvement or whether he was being set up. Theories ranged from plausible to outrageous. Some suggested that David, who was out on tour at the time, couldn't possibly have placed the body in the car himself. Others pointed to the David connection, arguing that it was too coincidental to ignore. A vocal minority even floated conspiracy theories that the car had been deliberately used to frame him.
And not to play conspiracy theory, but there's always a possibility here, right? That perhaps that person who did this, right, wanted the body to be found. If David has nothing to do with this, there is always a possibility that the body was placed in his car.
By the time Celeste Rivas was officially identified on September 17, what had started as a bizarre Hollywood crime story had snowballed into an international scandal. David, the 20-year-old R&B artist who rose to fame on TikTok with songs like Romantic Homicide, suddenly found his career and reputation hanging by a thread. In just a matter of days, he went from headlining shows across America to being linked with the tragic death of a teenage girl. Whether guilty or not, the court of public opinion had already begun to pass judgment, and the damage was only beginning. The allegations and investigation. When the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner confirmed that the body discovered in David's Tesla was that of 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, the public reaction shifted from shock to outrage. It was no longer just a mysterious death, it was the death of a child. And almost immediately, online investigators began piecing together a disturbing narrative that Celeste had not only known David, but had been in some form of a romantic relationship with him. From the very beginning, one detail haunted Celeste's family. In the weeks before her disappearance, Celeste had begun dating someone named David. As the New York York Post reported, Celeste's mother revealed that she believed her daughter's mysterious boyfriend may have been the singer himself, whose real name is David Anthony Burke. This connection ignited speculation online. Was it possible that a world-touring, chart-climbing 20-year-old artist had been secretly involved with a 14-year-old girl? The internet quickly dug deeper. Alleged screenshots began circulating of Discord conversations between David and Celeste, dating back to 2022. At that time, Celeste would have been just 12 years old, while David was 17. According to Hindustan Times, the chats were flirtatious and suggested an ongoing connection that evolved into a relationship by 2023. In other words, when Celeste was just 13 and David was 18, their interactions allegedly crossed into romantic territory. The alleged chats fueled accusations of grooming, a deliberate process where an older person builds trust and intimacy with a child to exploit them later. If these claims hold any truth, the legal implications would be devastating. In California, the age of consent is 18, meaning any sexual relationship between David and Celeste could constitute statutory rape under Penal Code Section 261.5. Adding to the suspicion, viral photos surfaced online appearing to show Celeste and David together. One image even depicted them wearing matching Hello Kitty-themed outfits. Another alleged piece of evidence pointed to a shh tattoo, the same phrase inked on both Celeste's and David's fingers. For many, this was no longer a coincidence. It looked like confirmation of a personal, possibly intimate connection between the two. The tattoo became one of the most viral and debated details in the case. According to Fox LA, Celeste's tattoo, shh, etched on her right index finger, was central to identifying her body. But internet sleuths pointed out that David had a similar tattoo, which they argued tied the two together in a symbolic, romantic way. Fans debated, was it possible that the tattoo was a shared mark of intimacy, a secret between them, or was the resemblance being exaggerated by desperate social media theories? Regardless, the tattoo solidified suspicion in the eyes of the public. For many, it felt like too much of a coincidence. If the alleged relationship between Celeste and David began in 2022, as the leaked Discord chats suggest, then the age gap becomes alarming. Celeste would have been 12 to 14 years old during the relationship, while David ranged from 17 to 20. While some pointed out that a 5-year age difference is less controversial in adulthood, the fact that one party was a minor under California law made this a potential criminal matter. As legal experts noted, any sexual contact during this period could bring charges of statutory rape, child enticement, or even grooming under federal law. This transformed the narrative from a tragic homicide case to something even darker. The possibility that a rising star in the music industry had exploited a child, and that exploitation somehow intersected with her disappearance and death. The Los Angeles Police Department, alongside the Riverside County Sheriff's Office, have remained cautious in their public statements. As of September 18, 2025, David has not been named a suspect. Officials have emphasized that while the Tesla was registered to him, that fact alone does not prove he was directly involved in the crime. Authorities are also analyzing Celeste's digital footprint. Her Discord account reportedly went silent about 3 months before her disappearance, which some believe lines up with the last period of possible communication with David. Investigators are now combing through her phone records, online messages, and any surveillance footage connected to the Tesla to build a clearer picture. A particularly puzzling aspect remains. Why was the Tesla abandoned in the first place? The long period of time it spent missing raises important questions like, if David wasn't driving the Tesla, who was? Could someone else in his circle, a friend, crew member, or even a stranger with access, have used it to transport Celeste's body? Was the car deliberately planted in the wealthy Bird Streets neighborhood to eventually be discovered?
But there's always a possibility here, right, that perhaps that person who did this, right, wanted the body to be found, and whether or not there is a situation where they wanted to throw suspicion on him.
Online, however, patience for nuance has run thin. The alleged Discord chats, photos, and tattoo connections convinced many that David was more than coincidentally involved. On platforms like X, hashtags like #DavidExposed and #Groomer began trending. Viral posts accused him of being both a predator and a killer, regardless of the lack of confirmed evidence. Others emphasized that even if David didn't kill Celeste, the alleged relationship itself was enough to condemn him morally, if not legally. The allegations also fractured his fan base. Some argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that he was being unfairly targeted because of his fame. Others, however, insisted that even the appearance of impropriety with a 14-year-old was unforgivable. This dual narrative, an official investigation that remains cautious, and an online conversation that has already convicted him, creates enormous tension. On one hand, law enforcement stresses due process. On the other, social media has already tied David's name irreversibly unacceptably to a dead teenager. Whether or not charges are ever filed, the damage is immense. Brand deals have been dropped, concerts canceled, streaming numbers are dipping, and in the background, the family of Celeste Rivas continues to grieve a daughter whose final years may have been marked by exploitation. As the investigation drags on, one thing becomes clear. This is not just a story about a body found in a Tesla. It's about what happens when allegations of grooming, celebrity power, and the exploitation of minors collide with a homicide case. The fallout. The discovery of Celeste Rivas' body in the Tesla registered to David has already sent shockwaves through Los Angeles, the music industry, and social media. But as the initial frenzy cools, the real questions begin. What will this mean for David's future? Will police eventually arrest him? How will his career, once soaring, survive this association with tragedy? And how does his case compare to other musicians whose names became inseparable from allegations of murder? The answers aren't simple, and they stretch far beyond the specifics of this one investigation. On the surface, it seems almost inevitable. A teenage girl's decomposed body was found in the front trunk of a Tesla, and that Tesla was registered to a rising star in music. To many, this feels like an open and shut case, but the legal reality is far messier. Detectives continue to frame him as a person of interest by default, simply because his name is on the registration. Forensic complications are central here. Celeste's body was so badly decomposed when found on September 8th that officials initially couldn't even confirm her gender. Without clear physical evidence, like fingerprints, DNA directly linking David, or a murder weapon, prosecutors are left with circumstantial ties, and yet those ties are troubling. Each detail in this case builds pressure, not only in the public eye, but also on investigators. Still, experts caution against assuming an arrest is imminent. Without new evidence, digital forensics from the Tesla's data, toxicology reports, or authenticating online messages, police may find themselves unable to bring formal charges. For now, the LAPD is cautious. The investigation is ongoing, and in that space of uncertainty, speculation thrives. But even without handcuffs, the consequences for David's career have been immediate and brutal. Within days of the discovery, Crocs and Hollister pulled the plug on their partnership. With him, these weren't minor side gigs. They were lucrative contracts that cemented his image as a Gen Z fashion icon. Their disappearance sent a clear message. Youth-focused brands cannot afford to associate with someone accused of involvement in the death of a 15-year-old girl. The fallout bled quickly into his touring schedule. On September 17th, just hours after Celeste's identity was revealed, David canceled his Seattle performance, citing personal matters. Fans who had traveled to see him were left confused, angry, and disappointed. The uncertainty now looms over his planned Los Angeles show at the Greek Theater, a concert that was supposed to be a career highlight. Instead, it may mark the end of an era. Streaming, too, has taken a hit. According to Pop Spoken, plays of his viral breakout track, Romantic Homicide, dropped 15% in a single day after the victim was identified. For an artist who built his fame on TikTok virality and Spotify playlists, decline is catastrophic. Platforms thrive on public sentiment. If the outrage continues, curators may quietly remove him from major playlists, a near-death sentence for digital-era musicians. Industry whispers also suggest collaborations are being shelved. Artists who once eagerly courted his aesthetic now want distance. His label, Interscope, issued only a neutral statement pledging cooperation with authorities. No strong defense, no public loyalty, just silence. In the entertainment world, silence often speaks louder than support. One of the unique aspects of this case is the role of social media. In past decades, celebrities accused of crimes battled rumors in tabloids. Today, trials play out live across TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, and X. On TikTok, clips covering the case have amassed over 100 million views. Conspiracy theories run rampant that David was framed by rivals, that industry insiders planted the body, that the Tesla was chosen specifically to ensure discovery. On Reddit, forums like R True Crime and R Popheads are buzzing. Threads dissect alleged Discord messages, timelines, and even David's lyrics for hidden meaning. This digital courtroom has already reached a verdict. For many online, David is guilty, whether or not police ever say so. And in today's entertainment economy, public opinion can matter as much, if not more, than legal outcomes. This isn't the first time a musician's career has collided with death and murder allegations. To understand David's uncertain future, it's worth revisiting some of these cases. Phil Spector was one of the most important music producers of the 20th century, famous for pioneering the so-called Wall of Sound, a production style that shaped hits for the Ronettes, the Crystals, and even the Beatles. But his career took a shocking turn in 2003 when actress Lana Clarkson was found dead from a gunshot wound inside his mansion in Alhambra, California. Spector insisted it was an accident, claiming she had shot herself. Prosecutors argued otherwise, pointing to his history of pulling guns on women and his reputation for volatile behavior. After a highly publicized mistrial in 2007, a second jury convicted him of second-degree murder in 2009. He was sentenced to 19 18 years to life in prison. Spector died behind bars in 2021, and while his musical innovations remain influential, his name is now more synonymous with violence and murder than with genius. Varg Vikernes is another music star whose career got derailed after he was charged with murder. In August 1993, Vikernes stabbed fellow musician and Mayhem guitarist Euronymous Oystein Arseth to death in Oslo. The murder was rooted in ideological conflicts, personal rivalries, and paranoia within the insular black metal community. Vikernes was convicted of murder, arson, and other charges, and sentenced to 21 years in prison, the maximum under Norwegian law. Despite being released in 2009, his name remains inseparable from the killing and the church burnings that rocked Norway in the 1990s. He still releases music and writes, but for many, his artistic output will never overshadow the fact that he murdered a bandmate in cold blood. Snoop Dogg, one of the most iconic rappers of all time, also faced his own brush with murder charges early in his career. In 1993, shortly after the release of his debut album Doggy Style, he and his bodyguard were charged with the murder of Philip Woldemariam, a gang member who was shot and killed in Los Angeles. The trial became a media circus, with prosecutors trying to paint Snoop as a gangster rapper whose lyrics glorified violence. For nearly 3 years, Snoop fought for his freedom. However, in 1996, he was acquitted after the defense successfully argued that the killing was self-defense. Though he walked free, the trial left a mark on his public image, cementing his reputation as both a symbol of West Coast gangsta rap and a controversial figure. Unlike others on this list, Snoop managed to rebound, building one of the most enduring careers in hip-hop. But the shadow of the trial loomed large in his early years, so when it comes to musicians being accused of murder, the outcomes vary. Some convicted, some acquitted, some dead before trial. But one pattern is clear. Careers rarely escape unscathed. For David, even if he is never charged, his name may remain forever linked to the Celeste Rivas case. For Celeste's family, this isn't about celebrity or reputation. It's about justice. They've asked for privacy, but their daughter's story has become the centerpiece of a global scandal. So, where does this leave us? David's future is teetering on a knife's edge. He is not yet under arrest. The police investigation is ongoing, but the court of public opinion has already begun sentencing him. Brands have fled, tours are collapsing, streaming is shrinking, and millions online debate whether he is a groomer, a killer, or a scapegoat. For David, the shadow is already here. The Tesla, the tattoo, the timeline, each has etched his name into a story that will not be forgotten. And as investigators continue to pore over data, DNA, and digital trails, one truth remains undeniable. The tragedy of Celeste Rivas will haunt both her family and the career of the young singer, whose name is now forever tied to hers. The world waits. Will this end in charges or in silence? Either way, the damage has been done. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.